The Info Kit. Call 800-949-1331. That's 800-949-1331.
Paid for by Wesley Financial Group.
Millions of Americans take medicine like Ozempic and Zepbound. Many of them are overpaying by thousands of dollars a year. These GLP-1 medications for diabetes, weight loss, and more may not always be covered by your insurance, but GoodRx can help. GoodRx helps you save every month on prescriptions at over 70,000 pharmacies nationwide. Best of all, it's free to use. Check GoodRx to save on GLP-1s. Just go to GoodRx.com/GLP. That's GoodRx.com/GLP. GoodRx is not insurance, but can be used instead of insurance, including Medicare and other federal and state-funded programs.
Is reviewing life insurance on your to-do list? Now's the perfect time to add it. A friend recently told me that securing life insurance sooner rather than later can help you lock in lower rates for years to come. So I bumped this up on my list and got it done. I called SelectQuote and couldn't believe how easy and affordable life insurance is. I'm 40 and got a $500,000 policy for $16 a month. My husband's also 40, and his $500,000 policy was only $18 a month. Plus, with SelectQuote's same-day coverage, there was no medical exam required, and we were covered by the time we hung up. Knowing I have this checked off my list feels amazing, but the peace of mind knowing my family is protected feels even better.
Call SelectQuote at 1-800-694-1010. That's 1-800-694-1010. Or go to SelectQuote.com to get your free quote today. 1-800-694-1010. Details on example rate at SelectQuote.com.
Let's say you've got questions. You're looking into solar, but you don't know where to start. Well, Harman Solar has the answers. Hi, I'm Jeffrey O'Brien, and listen, there's a couple of ways you can go here. One, visit harmansolar.com, browse around, because right across the page, they got links to all sorts of great information, like frequently asked questions, equipment, tax credits, even testimonials. Or just give them a call, 800-281-3189. Ask them directly. They'd love to hear from you. That's 800-281-3189. Or just go to harmansolar.com.
Sports bettors, we've all been there. You have a live bet lined up, you check the odds one more time, place the bet only to see the bet delayed by the spinny wheel, line move, and your bet rejected. My name's Alex Kane, and I'm the founder and CEO of Sporttrade, Arizona's newest sports betting app. At the core of the Sporttrade offering is our probability-based odds. In other words, the Cardinals may be offered at 55% odds to win, a lot simpler than minus 125. Place your bet at 55% odds, and as your win probability changes, so does the value of your bet, giving you the ability to cash out with total control. And the best part, no spinny wheels. Live bets on Sporttrade are instantly accepted. Download Sporttrade on your iPhone today and use code 1580 to earn 10% cash back on every bet in your first week. Terms apply.
Sporttrade is regulated by the Arizona Department of Gaming. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP.
All right, so there we were, cruising through the new open-air zoo when I realized that the park was closing in like 15 minutes. That's when the afternoon took an exciting turn. Luckily, we were in my Nissan Rogue. With its powerful DC turbo engine, well, we had more than enough time to see all the animals. Whoa! And outrun a few!
Drive the Nissan Rogue. Now, Nissan offers 6 vehicles starting under $30,000 MSRP. Shop at your local Nissan store or at nissanusa.com. 2024 Nissan Altima, Kicks, Leaf, Rogue, Sentra, and Versa. All prices are manufacturer's suggested retail price. Manufacturer's suggested retail price excludes destination and handling charges, tax, title, license, and options. Dealer sets actual prices.
KQFN Tempe. Also transmitting on K257CD Phoenix at 99.3 FM and K240 EU Mountain Hills at 95.9 FM.
All right, people, settle down because it's time. For what?
Showtime.
When does it start?
Right now. 3, 2, 1.
Let's get on with the show. Let's do it. And here we go. Welcome back to another edition of the Daily Blender. We're broadcasting live from the Harman Solar Studios. It's sunny uptown Scottsdale as we do. I'm Keon Rose. You might be familiar with me from the show I was just on, Beat the Book. and we're going to continue to run that. We're just going to be doing a whole lot more of that. It's funny, actually. I ran into Jeffrey yesterday. He stopped by the radio station. I was getting some stuff done after hours, and he swung by, and he asked me, how was Beat the Blender? How did that go? So I don't know if that's what we're going to unofficially call this, but that's where we're at. Today on the show, we've got Thursday Night Football to talk about. We've got a whole slate of NFL games to get to. We're going to talk Cardinals. I kind of want to set up ASU a little bit, just in terms of like, well, ASU's playing Texas, okay? And this is a school that they've wanted to play. They haven't been shy about the fact that the Texas Longhorns and that brand, that's the school they wanted a chance to take down. That also happens to be the school that I root for. I don't know if I can be normal when it comes to the Longhorns. I can normally be pretty unbiased about my teams and pretty ruthless about my teams. I don't trust them. But that's mostly because for the greater part of my life, these teams, Wizards, Nationals, Commanders even, Caps, like these teams have put me through hell for most of my life. But not the Longhorns. The Longhorns have never really been disappointing. They've been bad. They've underachieved. There have been times where they've become a joke where they've said, oh, Texas is back. You know that. You've heard that. Texas is back. And then they were not back. Well, they're here now. And they've got a chance to move on in this college football playoff. Running into the Georgia Bulldogs would be the nightmare scenario for them usually. But now that Carson Beck has got UCL surgery, all of a sudden, I think the Texas Longhorns feel like they can win a national title. So Sun Devils, Longhorns, I'm not going to give you the picks. That first off, that's going to be before New Year's. That's when the game is. We'll save it for that. And I will try my best to be unbiased and normal, though I promise you, I don't know how successful I'm going to be at that. But if I can give ASU some keys to victory, because the Longhorns, being my team, they're a team I'm very familiar with. I watch them every Saturday. I know what the weak points are. So we're going to talk about that because, well, that's going to be fun, right? So here we are looking at things going, oh boy. Oh, Mr. Wilbur. Mr. Wilbur, don't do this. You are not welcome on the bandwagon. You're not, Mr. Wilbur, starting the show off. The stars at night are big and bright, deep in the heart of Texas. You are not welcome on the bandwagon, Mr. Wilbur. We're not doing this. We're not taking on Wildcat fans. I'm not going to be here bad-mouthing ASU. I like ASU. I like the Sun Devils. I like Kenny Dillingham. I've been high on them since before the season began. I don't think anybody was more optimistic about this team live on the air than me. I don't wish harm or bad things to ASU. I just want my team to win, and that's all that there is to that. We're not taking Wildcat fans on the bandwagon. If you want to revel in it, if it works out for us, fine. But that's different. I am not opening up the bandwagon, sir. So we'll get to that a little bit later on in the show, but I think we ought to start with the Thursday Night Football. Dylan, by the way, Dylan Cohen of Beat the Book, my co-host there, and later today ran to go get something to eat because this is a long shift. When you do 4 hours of radio, that's a lot. That's a lot. So I'm asking him to do me a favor helping on this show, and so yeah, he's able to go get something to eat and come back and help us out. We're going to keep moving along because I have an axe to grind with the Chicago Bears. Because the temptation's going to be out there for all the people who are crying and complaining. Caleb Williams is a bust, and you're going to look at Caleb Williams and you're going to blame everything on him, and you're going to look at the stat line even and blame everything on Caleb. And I promise you that the problem plaguing the Bears is not the quarterbacks that they keep on drafting and continuing to fail. It is the Bears. This is now the third quarterback that they have drafted where they kept the coach from the year before. Turns out that guy stinks. And now they're changing offensive coordinator. They're changing head coach in year two, which is the most crucial year for young quarterback development. Year two is when guys start to figure it out. Remember Josh Allen, one of the most inaccurate quarterback prospects we ever saw come in the NFL. Year two is where Josh Allen figured that out. Or you have a guy like Patrick Mahomes, who didn't even play year one.
So by the time he got onto the field, it's time now for us to see everything that he did, everything that he learned year one, time to break out in year two. He does that. Year two is where guys make that step forward, especially if they've been struggling. And having some continuity, having a good culture is part of that, is part of having the success of that. And the Bears continue to put their young quarterbacks in positions where they cannot succeed. Swazman on the text line saying the big issue with the Chicago Bears was that the general manager drafted the wide receiver number 9 from Washington. That was a mistake. We need offensive and defensive linemen first, which I understand that, but I also understand getting your young quarterback weapons. And if you can get a guy who was graded as highly as Rome Odunze, I don't want to make it seem like Rome Odunze was not highly graded or that they reached for Rome at 9. They didn't. He was a prospect that a lot of people thought, boy, if you put him up there with Malik Neighbors and Marvin Harrison Jr., like he's right up there. There are some scouts and general managers who had Rome Odunze as their number 1 wide receiver. So if you get a chance to get a quarterback, a young quarterback, draft him and then get him his weapon of the future also as a rookie, and those two guys can grow together, I understand that strategy. Yeah, they should have gone more offensive line. Yes, they should have tried to go more in the trenches. But I understand the logic of going after Rome Odunze. If that's your biggest issue with the Bears, I get it. Because it's pretty obvious that Caleb Williams is running for his life on most downs. He is just hauling ass, trying to figure out a way to stay alive back there. So I get that. But I'll give you my gripe with the Bears. My biggest issue with the Bears is also the front office, but it's not even the offensive line stuff. They keep hiring bad coaches. Like at some point, that has to be put in the face of whoever's the general manager there. It does seem like it's going to be Ryan Poles again, but he's got to hire a slam dunk. This thing's got to be a home run. He doesn't get to miss here. After what this team has been, coaching is what will always hold you back. And I'll give you a list of coaches that I think should take over this particular job for season 2 of Caleb Williams. But that game ended on a 4th and 10, and it tells you everything you need to know about the Bears and everything you need to know about Caleb Williams. 4th and 10. Caleb Williams has to go out there to pick up a first down, which they haven't been moving the sticks all game long. The field goal is not a close field goal. It's a long one. It's a 57-yarder, but teams have tried 57-yarders before. You could just try the 57-yard field goal if you could make that. And again, that's not an impossible kick to make. That is a makeable kick in today's NFL because some of the kickers out there are freaks. You just kick the ball forever. That's not an impossible kick to make for that team and for that kicker. You got a chance to send this thing into overtime with a Seahawks team that's underachieving. They're not getting any success on the ground either. They're not getting any success in the air either. They're not getting into the end zone either, right? This is the lowest scoring football game of the entire season. And instead of taking the 57-yard field goal, you ask a rookie quarterback on a 4th and 10 to go out and pick up the first down, which of course he can't do, because if you didn't get it on the first 3, and we saw the way that game was going, Caleb Williams was struggling in that game, as was every quarterback in that game. Geno looked awful. Caleb looked awful. Everybody looked awful. Caleb Williams, 16 of 28, 122 yards, and he throws the one interception in the game. And that's incredible to me, that you would ask a rookie to do that in a game like this. And that's before we even get to the other stuff with the clock mismanagement. The Bears didn't manage the clock well, which young quarterbacks need. No coach is 100% at clock management. Like you're going to have games where you should have called a timeout earlier. You had games where you maybe didn't realize, how close you were to the 2-minute warning. Mistakes happen. I get it. However, the fact that you had Matt Eberflus, whose clock management was so bad you had to fire him that day, and the day was Thanksgiving, The fact that you had that and then you replaced him with another guy who cannot manage a clock is criminal. It's football malpractice. If I had to go into a court of law and charge the Bears with football malpractice, I don't think I'd need Big George. I don't think I'd need a lawyer. I think I could very convincingly argue that the Bears are trying to get their quarterbacks killed. And it wouldn't be that hard to do. They asked Caleb Williams to do the absolute impossible. I am arguing fairly constantly that I don't think Caleb Williams is a bust. I like the way that Caleb Williams has played this year. Has he looked like a rookie at many points? Yeah. But there are also flashes of the guy that Caleb Williams could be if he played on a team and played on a roster that made any damn sense. That he would be better. You do not have the ability to convince me that if Caleb Williams played for Dan Quinn in Washington, he wouldn't look better. You're not going to convince me that if he played for Sean Payton in Denver, he wouldn't look better. Caleb Williams looks the way he does right now because he played for Matt Eberflus and he's playing for the Bears. That's the reason why he doesn't look great. Caleb Williams is actually, well, was until last night when they had him go out there on a 4th and 10 to pick up a first down. Nobody playing football in that game was capable of picking up. Caleb Williams actually had one of the longest streaks of pass attempts without throwing an interception. In 2018, Aaron Rodgers had 402 pass attempts without throwing a pick before he finally did that. Brady in 2022 had 399 before he finally threw a pick. Jared Goff in 22-23, like in the blend of those years, he had 383. Brady, again, 358. Justin Herbert, just earlier this season, 357 pass attempts, no interception. And right behind him, Caleb Williams this year. He's taken pretty good care of the football, and you can criticize his game. He holds onto the ball too long. He tries to do, too much of the playmaking stuff. I get that. He does get a little too cute offensively with some stuff where you're just like, man, what are you doing? But he takes pretty good care of the football as far as throwing it goes. The fumble stuff is there too. But he's done a pretty good job of trying to be a young quarterback that doesn't just fling the ball in every possible direction. But he had to last night because his team said, here's an impossible situation. 4th and 10. We know you need to throw a deep shot. Know you need to buy time. We know that the defense knows you're throwing the ball and they're going to have their ears pinned back and they're going to come for you and they're going to knock your head off of your body. We know all of those things. Go out there, young fella, and make it happen. I just don't, that doesn't make any sense. That doesn't compute on any rational level unless you are the Chicago Bears. Just the concept of that entire game is just heartbreaking to see this team have a quarterback, finally have a guy who could be the answer for a franchise that has not had one in at least my entire life. And I am 34. I don't remember a Bears quarterback any of us have respected in my life. Jay Cutler? No. Rex Grisman went to a Super Bowl, carried on the backs of one of the best defenses I've ever seen. It wasn't Rex. Just insane. Let's take a look at the text line really quick because I have a feeling that some folks are going to back me up. Mr. Wilbur on the text line. Simple text. Don't need to say any more. The Bears are who we thought they were. And no one's letting them off the hook because they can't let themselves off the hook. Swazman says Bears ownership, the McCaskies, want to just cash the family check and future inheritance. The Bears are worth $4 billion, I think. They've always cut corners on certain things, sort of like the Bidwells here in Arizona. My point is not firing Eberflus last year was another big mistake, and it was. Now, I don't know that was the McCaskies doing. I think that was more the doing of Ryan Poles because you can't fire a coach every single year as a general manager and keep your job. Because now we have to start asking questions like, why do you keep hiring coaches that suck? Why do you keep doing that and stop doing that? So you try not to fire too many coaches if you're a general manager who has the power to hire a coach. And Ryan Poles does have that ability. And I understand why you wouldn't fire Eberflus because it makes you look bad to have to fire another dude. But I agree with Swazman that you know what makes you look worse? If you still have to fire the guy, and now he's screwed up part of your franchise, which is your quarterback, which is your young face of the franchise, future of the team. When you draft a guy with the number 1 overall pick to play that position, you're saying that for the next 10 to 15 years, you are the team. You're the franchise. You're the person we're building around. How do you continually, over and over again, repeatedly, not make that happen, not make that work? I don't know. But the Chicago Bears manage it all the time. Swazman says they could have gotten Jim Harbaugh. They could have gotten Jim Harbaugh. You know, the guy that wins everywhere he goes. Jim Harbaugh at Stanford. Nobody wins at Stanford. Harbaugh won at Stanford. Jim Harbaugh with the San Francisco 49ers and Colin Kaepernick won there. Jim Harbaugh at Michigan. Michigan's been a great team, but like when you look at the history of Michigan in championship games, there is no history there. You weren't winning chips at Michigan. Harbaugh won at Michigan. And now he's with the Chargers, and you can talk about how the Chargers are not necessarily like the best team. He has them in the playoffs right now. I mean, he basically turned around Staley's entire mess from last season in a year. And all he did was what? Add a couple of running backs? And they're hurt right now, and they're still winning? Harbaugh wins everywhere he goes. How on earth is it that the guy who once played in Chicago wasn't hired there? It's such a no-brainer of a hire that only the Bears could botch that. Only the Bears could screw up that. But they do have options. They do have options. And listen closely, boys and girls, because this is what they call a tease in the biz. We'll talk about those options next. I got options this year. I've talked about one of them. I think one's pretty obvious. But there are a couple of other ones that I'm kind of excited about, and I'd love to hear your thoughts too on who the Bears should hire this year, because they can't hire Harbaugh, obviously. Missed the train there. But who should the Bears hire this year to fix whatever this is? You're listening to the Daily Blender right here on 1580 The Fanatic.
This is Brent Musburger.
Sports betting apps are not created equal. Dylan Cohen from Beat the Book here to talk about the Sport Trade Advantage. With higher payouts, Sport Trade is the ultimate sports betting experience. Sport Trade is the first sports betting app that gives you the option to see the odds expressed as probabilities, and it's changing in-game betting forever. If it's easier to understand 52% probability of winning versus minus 108 odds, then Sport Trade is for you. With this percent odds feature, cashing out now makes much more sense. As the win probability changes, so does the value of your bet. And if you're an experienced bettor and prefer American odds, you'll get pricing closer to minus 106 versus the normal minus 110, coupled with instant in-play betting. No more spinny wheels. So download Sport Trade today to see the difference and beat the book. Use promo code 1580 to earn 10% cash back on every bet you place in your first week. Terms apply.
Sport Trade is regulated by the Arizona Department of Gaming. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP.
If you're living with dry age-related macular degeneration or dry AMD, you may be at risk for developing geographic atrophy or GA. GA can be unpredictable and progress rapidly, leading to irreversible vision loss. Now there's something you can do to
slow it down, get it going slower.
Izervay is proven to slow GA progression.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Izervay or avacincaptad pegol is a prescription eye injection used to treat GA. Don't take it if you have an infection or active swelling in or around your eye. Izervay can cause eye infection, retinal detachment, or increased risk of wet AMD. Izervay may temporarily increase eye pressure. Your vision may be impaired after an eye injection or exam. Don't delay. Ask your doctor about Izervay today.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Visit Izervay.com. That's IZERVAY.com.
paid for by Estella's Pharma.
Now open in Scottsdale. It's United Forte Custom Door Showroom with 40,000 euro doors and hundreds of state-of-the-art designs and finishes on display, plus kitchen cabinets, bathroom vanities, and more, all at wholesale prices. Builders, contractors, designers, and yes, you. Come see our showroom on Greenway Hayden Loop. That's United Forte, P-O-R-T-E. Stop by to see and feel the quality. United Forte Custom Doors. Find us at uporte.com. That's uporte.com.
We put you so close to the game, you can almost smell the sweat.
Ooh, awkward. GCU basketball is live on the Fanatic.
The GCU men's basketball team is live from Inglewood, California to take on San Diego in the West Coast Hoops Showcase, 4:30 p.m. Saturday.
Michael Potter and Paul Coro have the call live for GCU basketball on 1580 The Fanatic and always on at 1580thefanatic.com.
I don't know how you feel about Matt Ishbia, Suns fans, but Vivek Ranadive's, if he owned your team, you'd hate him. You'd hate it. We'll talk about it a little bit later in the show. The Kings, not but half an hour ago, fired Mike Brown. The details about that are wild, and what happens next for the Kings might be even wilder. So we'll discuss the death spiral of one of the Western Conference opponents of the Suns a little bit later on here in the show, but we've got to continue talking about the Bears. Sadly, if you're a Bears fan and you don't want to hear this, I apologize in advance, because the Bears have a ceiling. There's an up from where they are right now. They are currently in a 9-game losing streak. And during that 9-game losing streak, their quarterback didn't throw an interception once until last night when, and on a 4th and 10, rather than try to kick a 57-yard field goal to tie the game, on a 4th and 10, they had Caleb Williams go out there and do what? I do not know. I have no clue. Bat Flipper says the only thing I don't like about Caleb Williams is that he holds the ball too long. He relies on being better than everyone in the NFL, and very little separates an average player from a star. Not sure if coaching can fix that, let alone the Bears organization. And I do think that he holds onto the ball a long time. I do. I agree with that. But there are quarterbacks that do that and make it work. And I think Caleb is one of the guys that can make it work. He's gotten better over the year of getting rid of the football quicker. Caleb Williams in game 3 is not holding onto the ball nearly as long as Caleb Williams last night. He's clearly improved. I do think that you can coach that. I think the one thing that you really struggle to coach in the NFL is accuracy. I don't know how to make a guy who's a 55% passer become a 65% passer. Because at 65, that's manageable. You can win football games with a guy passing at 65%. Upper 60s, low 70s is what you really, really like. But you can live with a guy who's in the mid 60s, even low 60s. Can't live with a guy in the mid 50s. That's what Josh Allen was. I have no idea how Josh Allen managed to fix that and turn that around, but he became a more accurate passer. But for the most part, outside of Josh Allen, you don't get to fix inaccurate. Guy who holds onto the ball too long, you can fix that. You can scheme that. You can scheme it so that his first read is a quick throw. Teams do it all the time. So I don't know that that's an unfixable thing about Caleb Williams, though. Yes, that's not exactly a great part of his game. Hefty Lefty says the Bears are the real America's team. They didn't want to subject everyone watching that game to overtime. I salute you, Chicago. Fair enough, but you should try to win football games. If you're a football team, you should try to win football games. And I don't think that they screwed that up on purpose to save the rest of us. Now, they did. I'm not going to question the wisdom of it, but I don't think they did that intentionally. I think they screwed that up, and that's not great for their young quarterback that they're trying to develop. I think that they need to figure out a way to get Caleb Williams and maximize his potential. And I think that comes down to coaching. I think coaching matters. I think it's fair to say, looking at Justin Fields this year, looking at Sam Darnold this year, looking at Baker Mayfield this year, that coaching matters. Looking at Bryce Young this year and the improvements he made throughout the season. Coaching matters.
You don't get to just blame a kid getting drafted into a league when he's not taught well. He's not coaching himself. So I need people to kind of back up a little bit, and I am gonna take my victory lap with Justin Fields, because everybody was talking to me about how unfixable and how unusable as a quarterback Justin Fields was, and then we saw him this year, and look, the ceiling wasn't super high, but that didn't look like a guy who couldn't play on any level. It didn't. Justin Fields can play. So now we've got Caleb, who I think is a more talented passer, a more talented pocket presence. You've got to get the most out of him. That's going to come down to coaching. And I'm going to give you the obvious choice. Just going to throw it out there, Ben Johnson. Ben Johnson. That's like the number one obvious choice when you look at what he's done in Detroit with that offense, with Jared Goff. And I understand Detroit's loaded. Detroit is loaded in a way that a lot of teams aren't. But it's not like the Bears have nothing. If you ignore their offensive line for just a second, and that's a very big ignore, I'm asking a lot, but just follow with me a second. If you ignore the offensive line for just a second, when you look at that roster top to bottom for the Bears, and you look at how they've been put together, Ryan Poles, the reason why he still has a job is that he's not a bad GM. He somehow has not built an offensive line, despite the fact that when he was in the NFL, he was an offensive lineman. I find that to be incredibly confusing, that the one person who seems to not really understand what the team needs as far as being tough in the trenches is a guy that used to work in the trenches, and he doesn't seem to be able to construct that very well. I don't know what you're supposed to do about that. But I do think that Caleb Williams was a good draft pick. I do think picking up DeAndre Swift was smart. I do think going out and acquiring a DJ Moore and a Keenan Allen was a smart move. And I even understand the thought process behind going out and getting a Rome Odunze. I do. And he made that trade for Montez Sweat on the defensive side of the ball. And now that Bears defense is tough to play. He went out and got Kevin Byard to be safety out there. He went and got Tremaine Edmonds. Like, this is a Bears team that's not poorly put together. They just need a good coach to go out there and mold the young quarterback, manage the game like you're supposed to, get the locker room behind you. That's what you're supposed to do. I don't know about Ben Johnson being able to get the locker room behind him because he's never been a head coach. And you just don't know if a guy can do that until he does that. But I know that Ryan Poles can mold a young quarterback. I know that he can get that guy on the right track. We've seen what his offenses can do. He knows how to play situational football. He's not going to do what this Bears coaching staff this year has done, which is just ask Caleb Williams to do the impossible over and over again, and then watch him fail. All right, Caleb, go out there and be somebody. You just can't keep doing that. Definition of insanity, as they say. On the text line, Ryan Poles says finding O-line is the John Elway equivalent for drafting QBs. For Ryan Poles, absolutely. Ryan Poles, he seems to be struggling with it because it's not like he never tries to get offensive linemen. It just seems like he doesn't know how to find good ones. Like maybe you just find a scout that's good at that and that alone, and you just listen to him. Whatever he tells you to do, you do that. Because Ryan Poles can't see it. I don't know why. I don't know how. But he is struggling. Swazman says, how about rehire Lovie Smith? I love Lovie, but maybe the Bears could rehire the offensive coordinator from the Eagles, Kellen Moore. I like Kellen Moore. I don't think they should rehire Lovie Smith. I think the game has moved far enough away from a Lovie Smith that this is not a big need for the Bears. I do think the Kellen Moore, if someone wanted to hire him as an offensive coordinator, I don't know how much I love the idea of Kellen Moore, the head coach, just yet, where he is in his career. But I do like his offenses, and I do think that it would work well with Caleb Williams. And I think that he has, been able to adjust his offenses to multiple quarterbacks. He, coached Justin Herbert at one point. He did coach Dak Prescott at one point. He did coach, and he's now coaching Jalen Hurts. And I do think that all three of those quarterbacks play the game very differently. Dak doesn't play it like Justin. Justin doesn't play it like Jalen. Jalen doesn't play like Dak. They all have their own strengths and weaknesses, and he's tailored his offense to that, which suggests to me that he can find what's good about Caleb Williams and make that better. Like, there's a reason why Jaden Daniels looks so great. One, like, Jaden himself is pretty awesome. He's a smart guy. He's a hard worker. He's insanely athletic, just twitchy and fast as all get out. And like, there's a lot of things you could give him credit for. I'm about to do something that might make me throw up in my mouth a little bit, but you're just going to have to bear with me. He is doing as well as he is because Cliff Kingsbury is the offensive coach there. I don't know if I want Cliff Kingsbury to ever be a head coach ever again, but as an offensive coordinator, Cliff is doing a good job. Cliff knows what Jaden is good at, and he asks Jaden to do those things. Knows what Jaden's bad at, hasn't really asked Jaden to do much of that. So Jaden doesn't end up being put in impossible situations over and over again, and you can see the confidence growing throughout the season. Caleb didn't have that. Caleb had a coaching staff that would just ask him to go out there and on 1st and 10, 2nd and 10, 3rd and 10, throw the football 3 times in a row. Like, why does that make any sense? Especially you're down 14 points. Why does that make any sense? They did it all year. All year. At some point, you have to say the quarterback comes first when we hire people. We'll figure out the other position groups. But if we break another quarterback, it might be another 10 to 15 years before we get a shot at a generational talent like this again, which is why I like Joe Brady. Joe Brady from Buffalo. I think that the guy is very talented as well. I think that offense is great. Now, there is a little bit more question marks around that in terms of how much of this offense is Joe Brady and how much of this offense is Josh Allen. And I would argue that a good chunk and percentage of that is Josh Allen, but the Bills do a lot of things scheme-wise that I think would be very helpful for a Caleb Williams, not the least of which is helping him, and I forget who texted that in Bat Flipper earlier, helping Caleb get the ball out of his hands quickly. That's a scheme thing. You can scheme that. If you want to play an offense with a quick game, you can do that. If you want to go no huddle so that we're just moving the ball and we're going to go death by 1,000 cuts, you can do that. Sean Payton's offense in Denver does that for Bo Nix. Now, Bo Nix has never been the longest hold on to the football guy. So that's the reason why he's such a perfect fit for a Sean Payton offense. He already does want to get rid of the ball pretty quickly. But the scheme of the offense is that. The scheme of the offense is get the ball out. That's where we're going to find our most production. And then when they're inching up to try and play underneath, then we throw the ball over the top of them. And now you've got a snowball effect where the Denver Broncos can beat you in a variety of different ways, throwing the football at multiple levels. Like, that's what you want. What we have in Chicago is no real structure for Caleb Williams to work in. So he goes to his normal instinct, which is that he's going to go big game hunting. And that doesn't work in the NFL if you try to do that every single play. The defenses are too good. The defensive coaches are too good. The defensive players are too good. Which brings me to my last point. Pete Carroll. If Pete Carroll's available and wants to coach the Chicago Bears and I'm Ryan Poles, I hire him. I hire Pete Carroll because Pete Carroll is a couple of things. One, Pete's a culture builder, which I think is absolutely huge. Like, I think that that's the number one thing. Like, what we do on a day-to-day basis as an organization helps young quarterbacks. And how we're going to be accountable, how we're going to be responsible inside of an NFL organization to one another, that also matters. And I know this because Pete Carroll has a coach from his coaching tree coaching my team in Washington. And Dan Quinn's had some success, not just in Washington, he had some success in Atlanta too. We won't talk about the Super Bowl with the lead that they blew, but that was some success though, because to get the Falcons there, that's huge. And this is a defensive-minded coach, but he's good at building culture. He's good at getting everybody on the same page, and he's good at hiring offensive, defensive, special teams coaches who all know what the mantra in the building is. Everybody knows what their responsibilities are. I don't understand how it is that you don't pick up the phone and call Pete Carroll for that, because he's still good at it. He's still good at it. And he hires, an offensive coach that can figure out how to make things work. Because you don't have to hire a defensive guy or an offensive guy, rather. You can hire a defensive guy if the offensive coach knows who to hire offensively. The reason why I want the Bears to go get Ben Johnson is I don't trust the Bears to find a defensive-minded coach who knows what to do offensively. I think they've basically proven that they cannot do that. Over and over and over again. Swazman on the text line says, is John Gruden off the non-hire list? He might be a long shot for the Bears' next head coach. He's not off the list, Swazman. Did you see what he said? The stuff was racist, man. He is never coming off of that list. He is going to be making YouTube analysis videos from now until the end of his life. That's going to be his connection and relationship to football. Have you noticed that you haven't seen John Gruden on TV either? He's not even hireable on TV. Fox Sports 1 employs Paul Pierce. You look up what Paul Pierce did to get himself fired from ESPN and then realize that even Fox won't touch Gruden. He's not coming back. We can go ahead and let that go, Just a Tip. He's never coming back. Or sorry, Swazman. He's never coming back. Just a Tip says the head coach job has so much to do with press, social media, stuff that has nothing to do with football. Kingsbury doing what he does best, coaching, designing an offense. I'm a bit of a fan of him. I am a bit of a fan of him, but I'll give credit. Maybe you meant I'm not a fan of him, but I'll give credit. Yeah, I'm not a fan of Kingsbury either. And I don't like the way the teams figure out his offenses in the second half of seasons, except the Commanders were starting to get figured out. They went into a bye week. They came out of the bye week. He's clearly changed up some stuff. Like the one thing that I never liked about him, he's seemingly fixed. So we'll see. But yeah, being a head coach is more like being a CEO than you are calling the plays. You're in charge of the whole organization. There are guys who have that job and like, what is it that they actually scheme? Harbaugh doesn't scheme things, but he's good at the CEO part of the job, that aspect of the job. You need somebody like that. The Bears could do well with somebody like that. And I think Pete Carroll is somebody like that. Hefty Lefty says, I mean, Wrigley Gum is from Chicago, right? Perfect fit for Pete. Yeah, then maybe it might last longer than the whatever it is that he chews, where he's just chewing powder by the time the halftime rolls around. Like he needs a gum upgrade. Absolutely. Absolutely. I just think that Pete fits. I wouldn't reach out to him before I reached out to Ben Johnson. And I have heard people talk about Cliff, and Cliff could work with the Bears in terms of being, a guy who knows Caleb Williams, is familiar with Caleb Williams. But again, do I trust Cliff to do the CEO part of the job, to manage everything else in the building? There are coaches who've learned from their first goes around. They get a second chance, and they've clearly learned from their mistakes moving forward. So hopefully, whenever Cliff gets his next chance, he'll have learned from them. I'm not rooting against Cliff. I don't hate Cliff. I have just hated some of the things about his offenses in the past. The lack of motion and, the lack of being able to get anybody to commit to running an offense that people can't figure out for 17 weeks of football. Like I struggle with that aspect of Cliff, but the part of Cliff that knows ball, the guy knows the game, but I don't think he should be a head coach just yet. I think he might need a little bit more time away from being a head coach, away from the pressure of that. And I can't imagine Cliff and his not having a strong personality in the city of Chicago. That's out here. I think that we let him get away with with a lot in Phoenix. Cardinals fans did not go after Cliff as harshly as he would have gone. If he had been coaching in New York, if he had been coaching in DC, if he would have been coaching in Philly, Cliff would have been run out of town 2 years before he actually got fired here. It's just what it is. Just is what it is. So we're going to put a bow on this. We're done. We're done talking Bears. We're done talking Seahawks. I didn't even really talk Seahawks because what is there to talk about, man? Geno was terrible. They could not run the football. Just an absolute mess. And I know the Bears defense was playing well, but no touchdowns in the lowest scoring game of the season. So what's going to happen next is we're going to shift gears to a little NBA, because the Mike Brown firing was about an hour ago. And I want to talk about it. Dylan's back, and Dylan is our big NBA guy in the building. I want to pick his brain about this because there are more steps to this than just Mike Brown got fired. We could see the Sacramento Kings, who were a team that a lot of people thought could make the playoffs this year. And if they made the playoffs, Western Conference is tough. You can always go on a run. Instead of doing that, the Kings might actually be entering the beginning stages of an absolute death spiral. I want to talk about it. We're talking about it right now on the Daily Blender on 1580 The Fanatic.
Everybody's got a podcast these days. Comedy, politics, true crime, you name it. But how many actually teach you anything useful? Harmon Solar has an entertaining podcast that is vital if you've been thinking about looking into solar, but you don't know where to start. Ralph and Ben explore the intricacies of utilities, equipment, processes, and more. Their primary objective is to educate and empower you to make informed decisions on your solar journey. So increase your knowledge, not your bills. Go check it out right now. It's the Harmon Solar Podcast at harmonsolar.com.
Breaking news, and this one is almost unbelievable.
Yeah, it's all about new customers at Bet365 because they get $150 in bonus bets when they bet $5. And even better, bonus bets can be used on the spread, totals, and player props.
There you have it. Bet $5 to get $150 in bonus bets. And see why. It's never ordinary at Bet365. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP. 21 plus only. Must be physically located in Arizona. Terms and conditions apply.
Texting enrolls you in a recurring automated marketing text messages. Consent not required to purchase. Message and data rates may apply.
The team's looking good this season.
I think so. Man, I miss playing football. Being young with unlimited energy to burn ever since I turned 40. I just can't find that fire I used to have.
Think it could be lower testosterone?
What do you mean?
All guys lose their edge when they turn 40. The body has less testosterone. That's why I take Nugenix Total T.
I've heard about Nugenix. That really works?
Since I started taking Nugenix, I'm lifting like when we played for Coach Carter. I feel more energized at work. It's even spiced up things between me and the missus.
Are they still giving out complimentary bottles for people to try?
Yep, send a text. It's that easy.
Text RIP to 42424 right now for your complimentary bottle of Nugenix Total T. It's the #1 selling testosterone boosting brand at GNC and Walmart. Do it now and they'll also send you a bottle of Nugenix Thermo X, their newest, most powerful fat burner ever, absolutely free. Text RIP to 42424. That's RIP to 42424. These statements have not been evaluated by the FDA. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Is reviewing life insurance on your to-do list? Now's the perfect time to add it. A friend recently told me that securing life insurance sooner rather than later can help you lock in lower rates for years to come. So I bumped this up on my list and got it done. I called SelectQuote and couldn't believe how easy and affordable life insurance is. I'm 40 and got a $500,000 policy for $16 a month. My husband's also 40, and his $500,000 policy was only $18 a month. Plus, with SelectQuote's same-day coverage, there was no medical exam required, and we were covered by the time we hung up. Knowing I have this checked off my list feels amazing, but the peace of mind knowing my family is protected feels even better.
Call SelectQuote at 1-800-694-1010. That's 1-800-694-1010. Or go to SelectQuote.com to get your free quote today. 1-800-694-1010. Details on example rate at SelectQuote.com.
It's the sound of the fight songs, the excitement of the rivalries. It's the unbelievable upsets. It's the Heisman hopefuls. It's the national rankings. College football is coming. Listen for it on 1580 and 99.3, The Fanatic.
And we're back. Talking a whole lot of Thursday night football, mostly the Bears, because let's be honest, who isn't tired of watching the Bears get another quarterback? Maybe they drafted him too high in the case of Mitchell Trubisky. Maybe they drafted a guy who needed a little bit more development than they were ready to give in the case of Justin Fields. But just generation of quarterback after generation of quarterback, the Bears just can't seem to get it right. And a lot of that is drafting. A lot of that is player development. A lot of that is coaching. But we're putting that behind us right now because we're moving on to our second dysfunctional organization of the day, the Sacramento Kings, owned by a man who once asked, I don't remember who the coach at the time was, Dylan, But I remember when Vivek was just bought the team and he was like, why don't we just leave a player behind when we're on offense and then, or when we're on defense, and then when we get the ball, we can just throw the ball back.
Just little cherry picking.
Yeah, because he saw his daughter do that in middle school basketball.
That might have been Luke Walton being the coach.
Yeah, Walton was still the coach at the time. Yeah, like that is who we're discussing here. This is the level of basketball knowledge that we're on. So to set this up, Mike Brown got fired about an hour ago. And it was pretty shocking news because the Kings aren't a bad basketball team. Now they could be better. You could argue that, they're not doing quite nearly enough, especially the way they lose some games. They lose a lot of games in crunch time. But at 13-18, the Kings aren't out of anything right now. They're just behind the Spurs, and the Spurs are just outside of that last play-in game spot at 10, currently held by the Golden State Warriors. It's just tough out here in the West. Mike Brown, who was coach of the year 2 years ago, just got fired. And before he came on just a moment ago, Dylan was telling me about the details of this. Mike Brown got fired right before they boarded the team plane to go play. He just ran a full practice and talked to the media and then got fired right in front of everybody, which is the equivalent of Lane Kiffin at USC being fired on the tarmac. It's a level of disrespect.
Right after a loss to ASU.
Yeah, I mean,
we savored that.
Just hold on. Hold that in your heart forever. Hold it in your heart forever. I don't know if it's going to have the same level of weight if you're the Kings and you just lost to the Pistons. Crazy ending to that game. Another crunch time implosion for the Kings. I don't know that the Pistons are going to hold on to that forever. The way ASU fans hold on to the Lane Kiffin thing, but the level of disrespect is insanely similar. And now you have a team that a lot of people thought, look, if they can get into the playoffs, and that's a tough thing to do in the Western Conference, I know, but if they could get into the playoffs, like these guys could make a run. We're talking about De'Aaron Fox. We're talking about Domantas Sabonis. Like this is not a team that can't play.
DeRozan.
Yeah, like they were playing well. They were just losing close games, and to not give Mike Brown the opportunity to turn that around and start maybe winning some of these close games so you can get an opportunity, this seems way too soon and way too strong of an overreaction for a guy that they just gave an extension to this offseason.
So there's a lot of wrinkles in this, and the picture is starting to become a little bit more clear because my initial reaction was like, why in the world would they Lane Kiffin Mike Brown? Like Mike Brown just does not deserve it. And, like within Sacramento Kings, media outlets and, fan blogs and whatnot, there is a lot of like outrage and frustration about it. The fan base is upset at, the current play of the team. You take a look at the Sacramento Kings current record. They're standing at 13-18. They are 3 games outside of the play-in. So, I mean, you're only 31 games into the season. I mean, we're not halfway. There's more than half of the season left. Plenty of opportunity for Sacramento to turn this thing around and, get themselves into a place where they're not even in the play-in. They could potentially get above it. But you go back to that game last night against the Pistons, and the Kings got outscored by 15 points in the fourth quarter. They ultimately gave up a 16-point lead that they had at halftime to lose. And it did happen in a really just miraculous kind of a one-off type of play where Jaden Ivey had a 3-point shot in the corner. He got fouled. He ended up making the free throw that put the Pistons up 1, and that was ultimately how the Kings lost. But you also have to consider the fact that Sabonis wasn't even playing. So
they weren't at full strength.
It does feel a little bit like an overreaction, but there is another kind of element to all of this. And this is where this is going to start to make a little bit more sense because it really doesn't make sense.
It makes no sense whatsoever.
I'll kind of
you've had time to read. I've been talking about the Bears being bad for the last hour. So what's going on here?
So first off, I mean, if you're the Kings and you're going to make this decision to fire Mike Brown, to do it at this point in the season, it's crazy because anytime you're going to do this, you need to have that next guy up ready to go. And the ironic thing about this is the Kings actually did have that next guy up ready to go. His name was Jordi Fernandez. He was one of the top assistant coaches in the entire league For a couple of summers, he was interviewing with many teams, a very hot coaching candidate. And the Brooklyn Nets were fortunate enough to pick him up over this last offseason. He is now their head coach, and he's working with a G League level roster right now that currently has the same exact amount of losses as this current Sacramento Kings team. So I have to imagine Vivek Randive, he's looking at that. That's got to be, upsetting him. But what did actually get reported and got kind of swept under the rug, this happened over the last couple of weeks. De'Aaron Fox is repped by Rich Paul, and Rich Paul, being one of the premier, sports agents in the country, he has a lot of leverage. He has a lot of influence, and he is the kind of guy that can contact De'Aaron Fox's organization, the Kings, and say, hey, I want a meeting with the top brass because I don't know what the plan is here. De'Aaron doesn't know what the plan is here. He's got an extension coming up. He's obviously played well enough to deserve that extension, but we don't know if we want to commit to you guys because we don't really see the picture of what you're building here. This team feels like it doesn't have much of a direction. De'Aaron is entering the prime of his career. Making money is important to him, but winning's more important. And if you guys don't look like you're skewing in a direction that's going to get De'Aaron Fox into some more meaningful, playoff games, then we're not going to commit to you. So this meeting happened a couple of weeks ago. It did get reported, but I mean, really where it actually got reported was De'Aaron Fox appeared on Draymond Green's podcast. And
I hate the way that's the way you learn things because I can't listen to all 40 player podcasts to learn the things that are happening in the NBA where players used to talk to journalists.
And I don't tune into that podcast. So I had to really sit here and kind of scour the internet for the last 20 minutes to kind of put all the pieces together here. But what's going on is that Sacramento essentially kind of ran into a choice where your star player is threatening to leave. They want to see some things done that are going to alter the direction of the franchise and put you on a better track to be more competitive. What hasn't been directly said, but what seems to be something that you can imply from this is that Rich Paul and De'Aaron Fox did not believe that team could be successful with Mike Brown at the helm. And, a team, it's not necessarily a good precedent for them to give in to these kinds of demands because now you've got your best player's agent, calling the shots
in your building. So you just gave your coach an extension. And then when your star player's agent said, fire the guy, he says, jump, you say how high, that's not going anywhere good.
Well, I think they must have initially resisted because this was 2 weeks ago, but the losing kept happening. They lost, I think 5 straight games.
5-game losing streak. Yeah.
So this one last night, pretty bad. And to the point where, the Kings brass must have got together and just said, if we don't do this, we're losing De'Aaron. So therefore, they would rather go into, coaching hell right now to, suffer through. Right now, Jay Triano is the associate head coach for the Kings. I'm assuming he's going to be the guy to kind of, grab the reins.
Yeah.
But who that next guy is going to be, there's no way they know who that is right now. And that's not a good place to be in, if you're an NBA organization.
I'm sorry. This raises so many more questions for me. One, why fire him before you got on the team plane? Why couldn't you just say to Rich Paul, the way that things are going to be done, we're going to fire him after this game. We're going to have a day off. We're going to fire him then. We're not going to fire him right before the team boards the plane to go play later after he ran a practice, after he talked to the media. The timing of this still doesn't make sense to me. That's kind of crazy in and of itself. And also, again, what happens if you hire another coach and De'Aaron Fox and Rich Paul don't like that guy? Are you going to fire him too? This is a line that will move, I think, negatively. And I think a lot of other NBA teams can't be happy about the way that that's gone down if that becomes more widely known that Rich Paul is essentially the guy that fired Mike Brown, agent.
Rich Paul is also the guy that got Bronny James a contract that he absolutely does not deserve.
Now, granted, if you're a basketball player and you have any clout at all, I think we're learning Rich Paul needs to be your agent. That's what we're learning.
He is one of the most powerful people within basketball. Absolutely. This was kind of funny in my research of this. I stumbled upon Vivek Ranadive's Wikipedia page, and it turns out he's he is actually like a published author. He's wrote a few books, and some of the titles of these books, like right now in this moment, are kind of like hilariously ironic. He wrote a book in 2006. The title of it was called The Power to Predict,
which he clearly doesn't have.
He wrote another book in 2011. It was called The 2-Second Advantage, How We Succeed by Anticipating the Future.
Again.
Just enough.
Again. While displaying, at least in this offseason and in this year, the exact inability to do so in the business that you run, which is what the Kings are.
So another kind of interesting little piece here to this, you think about, okay, well, now what are the Kings going to do? I mentioned Jay Triano. He actually was the head coach of the Suns once upon a time, but that was back in the day of, Alex Len, Marquise Chris. We blocked all that stuff out. Who is a coach for the Sacramento Kings right now? Leandro Barbosa.
Really?
That would be intriguing.
That would be very intriguing.
CLB come up and try and lead a franchise. Players would love to play for LB.
I'm pretty sure they would. And I always liked Barbosa when he was playing. I thought he was a great defensive player. So we're going to get to some Suns stuff on the other side. We're also going to talk a little bit about what you sent in here, Rough Rob. Rough Rob sent in the text a few moments ago that said 3 bowl games were better than what the NFL put out in the past 3 days. Going to talk about why the NFL is king. And it has to do with the ratings. The NFL rated highly with 3 games that were cheeks that they put on TV and 1 streaming service and made us watch. And we'll talk about that there. On the other side, you're listening to the Daily Blender right here on 1580 The Fanatic.
Hey, sports fans, this is Dylan Cohen.
And I'm Keon Rose, and we're bringing you Beat the Book every weekday from 2 to 3 in the afternoon.
So if you want the latest betting picks, advice, and analysis that's sharp as a knife,
or at least sharper than Dylan's last pick on the Cardinals.
Oh, you've got jokes, huh? Maybe you're feeling bold now that your Commanders actually look decent this season.
Hey, even a broken clock's right twice a day, right?
Well, tune in to Beat the Book with us, Dylan Cohen and Keon Rose, every weekday from 2 to 3 on 1580 The Fanatic.
Brought to you by Sport Trade, the newest sports book in Arizona.
If you're living with dry age-related macular degeneration or dry AMD, you may be at risk for developing geographic atrophy or GA. GA can be unpredictable and progress rapidly, leading to irreversible vision loss. Now there's something you can do to
slow it down. Slower.
Izervay is proven to slow GA progression.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Izervay or avacincaptad pagel is a prescription eye injection used to treat GA. Don't take it if you have an infection or active swelling in or around your eye. Izervay can cause eye infection, retinal detachment, or increased risk of wet AMD. Izervay may temporarily increase eye pressure. Your vision may be impaired after an eye injection or exam. Don't delay. Ask your doctor about Izervay today.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Visit Izervay.com. That's IZERVAY.com.
Paid for by Estella's Pharma.
We all hear the radio ads about the IRS. They tell you to be afraid, to be scared, and they try to frighten you into calling. I'm not here to do that. Tax Relief Advocates is different. TRA is here to tell you that if you owe money to the IRS, whether it's $5,000, $50,000, or $500,000, we have a solution. It doesn't matter if you're sitting in your car, at work, or with your kids. No matter where you are, call now. 800-575-9491. Don't lose hope. TRA can eliminate or reduce what you owe to the IRS. Generous programs are now available that can give you a fresh start. Our passion is taxes and helping individuals fix their IRS problems. We have over 1,000 5-star reviews on Google and an A+ with the Better Business Bureau. You don't need to be afraid of the IRS any longer. End your tax nightmare today by visiting us online at TRA.com or call 800-575-9491. That's 800-575-9491. Tax Relief Advocates. Real solutions for real people.
Must qualify for enrollment. Results may vary.
In most countries of the world, Porte means door. United Porte Custom Doors, located in the Scottsdale Airport Design District, is now open with over 40,000 European doors, all in stock, ready for delivery, and at wholesale prices. Designers, contractors, builders, and yes, you. Come see our showroom on Greenway Hayden Loop. That's United Porte, Porte. Stop by to see and feel the quality at United Porte Custom Doors. Find us at uporte.com. That's uporte.com.
KQFN Tempe. Also transmitting on K257CD Phoenix at 99.3 FM and K240 EU Mountain Hills at 95.9 FM.
people, settle down. Because it's time.
For what?
Showtime.
When does it start?
Right now. 3, 2, 1.
Let's get on with the show.
Let's do it.
Welcome back to the Daily Blender, our numero 2, because I was the weird kid that took French in high school instead of Spanish. That was me. So, we're broadcasting live from the Harmon Solar Studios, 1580 The Fanatic. I'm Keanu Rose. Alongside me is our betting expert in the building, Dylan Cohen, and you are on the text line, 888-368-1580. And we were just talking about the Sacramento Kings, and I thought, got a pretty interesting question from Kiss the Cook on the text line, who says, so what's the buy-in for the Kings to play tonight? They have no head coach and zero direction. And I think that that's a pretty good question if you want to field that one, Dylan, about like what makes a player motivated to play when your head coach gets fired right before you board the flight.
Well, first and foremost, the Kings don't play today. But you know,
or when they
when they do play
when
next.
they play next.
Played, yeah. I was like, wait, they play tonight. You know, there's two different ways this could go, because I know on the surface, yes, that is kind of how this looks right now. But I mean, we have seen surprise coaching firings like this, and then all of a sudden the team is actually better off for it. So, you know, for a guy like Mike Brown, I mean, it's hard to imagine that somehow he's having like a negative impact on the team. I mean, the guy won Coach of the Year like not even 2 years ago. But I mean, there is, I would not discount the chance that there's something about this that actually like sparks the Kings. Their next game is in Los Angeles against the Lakers on Saturday. And that is a matchup where the Kings have actually competed pretty well against the Lakers. And I would say as long as Domantas Sabonis plays, they absolutely, you know, have a chance to be competitive in this. I'm just pulling up the regular season matchup right now. The Lakers have actually won each game, but a couple of these games have been decided by 4 points or less. So, I mean, the potential for it to be competitive is totally there. But, you know, going forward on the Kings, I would be looking to play De'Aaron Fox props, because at this point, I don't think the Kings have done enough to make De'Aaron Fox happy, you know, unless Mike Brown goes out and all of a sudden the Kings go on like some 10-game winning streak or something that like really gives him some confidence in like sticking around. I mean, Rich Paul is a master at helping his clients get what they want. And,
Clearly.
And, you know, especially in a situation like this where the guy is stuck on a team that's just going nowhere. There are buyers for De'Aaron Fox out there. I mean, the Kings could turn around and get some value back that may actually, you know, make them a better team. The Lakers come to mind. And, you know, in a potential trade with the Lakers, the one thing that I think may hold it up is that the Lakers would be trying to do their best to make D'Angelo Russell a part of that deal. And the Kings would be doing their best to make sure he's not involved in that deal. I could see the Lakers maybe getting by with like a package of Austin Reeves, Dalton Connect, maybe some draft capital. But, you know, if you're the Lakers, it'd be pretty hard to give up those guys, especially when Austin Reeves has been playing the way he has. He just, you know, won you a game the other day on Christmas Day with the game-winning layup against the Warriors. So, I mean, you'd be giving up a pretty good amount of your depth, which you already don't even have much already if you're the Lakers, to bring in a guy like De'Aaron Fox, who, look, I mean, he's top 7 in the NBA in scoring. He would bring a massive amount of offense that would take a lot of pressure off LeBron and Anthony Davis. So I think it is something that the Lakers will entertain. The Houston Rockets, that's another one to keep an eye on. And they've got tons of assets to be able to pull off a trade, you know, with the Kings to bring De'Aaron Fox in there. And you pair him up with Fred VanVleet, and that is a potent backcourt. You know, you can slide Dylan Brooks over to the small forward. You know, you've got Şengün, you've got Jalen Green. I mean, they could put together a very dynamic offense if they bring De'Aaron Fox into the fold. So I don't think this chatter is going away.
It's not. And I'll tell you, here's what the nightmare scenario is for the Kings. Rough Rob on the text line going, damn, they kiffined Mike Brown.
That's
nasty work. Yeah, no, like that's our first thought too. That's all we talked about for about 10 minutes not too long ago. Fire the guy before you get on the team plane is just
I mean, he led practice. If Mike Brown knew he wasn't going to have a job by the end of the day, he wouldn't have led practice. You could have fired him either earlier today or tomorrow.
He absolutely deserved better than that. Like, you go back to that whole Lane Kiffin thing, and like Lane Kiffin got this like massive contract to go be the coach at USC, and like they were miserable. They were miserable. He never followed through at all on what he was supposed to do. Mike Brown did. I mean, Mike Brown didn't bring you a championship, but you've also never won a championship in the history of your franchise. So I'm not going to knock him for that. But he got you into the playoffs. If it wasn't for Steph Curry and the Warriors, you would have advanced out of the first round.
And Mike Brown doesn't have the history of burning everything down everywhere he goes that Kiffin had. And Mike Brown is pretty well liked in the places that he's coached, both as an assistant and as a head coach, going all the way back to Cleveland in the first stint that LeBron was there. When you look at what Lane Kiffin did, how he left Tennessee, when he left in the middle of the night and didn't tell anybody. When Tennessee fans found out, there were couches on fire. This is not a joke. They went crazy. Then he gets fired on the tarmac at SC, and then he goes and coaches as an assistant for Nick Saban, who fires him the day before the national title game. Basically, I don't even want to look at you. We've been planning for this national championship for a month, and I fired you the day before because you are that annoying to me. He just has left a path of destruction everywhere he's gone. You can't say that about Mike Brown. Mike Brown's been pretty much an upstanding coach everywhere he's ever coached. No matter what he's done, he is a professional, and he just didn't deserve that. And I don't think that this goes well for the Kings. We do have some reaction to this on the text line, by the way. Big George, I'll get back to that text, Big George, because that requires its own time. I don't want to kind of splice that into this. The Stockton Slab says, "Ooh la la, très bien, Kian. Moi aussi. Oui, oui, croissant. Rudy Gobert." I deserve that. I deserve that. All of my friends are like, "Why didn't you take Spanish? We could just all hang out in class together." I'm like, I like baguettes. Leave me alone. Pickle D says, "No way the Lakers get rid of Connect. He's a replacement for LeBron." Pickle D. I was with you at the end of that first sentence. And then you said the second part of that. And he's not a replacement for LeBron. I like Connect. They value him, though. They do value him. Yeah, I agree with that part. Now, do I think this organization is dumb enough and short-sighted enough to do that? Yeah, I think they shouldn't. I think that would be a bad idea. That is another organization where Rich Paul has been able to really just get whatever he wants. Because Bronny James, who has done absolutely nothing at the professional level, just got into the NBA after having maybe the most below average college career that anybody's ever had, and then still gotten drafted after. Rich suffering an episode of cardiac arrest. Yeah. I mean, Rich Paul, that guy deserves some credit for being a fantastic agent. If you can get him as an NBA player, just go ahead and do that, because clearly he finds a way to work his way into your organization and use his leverage to just squash everything they're trying to do. Because clearly the Kings liked Mike Brown. If they didn't like Mike Brown, they'd have let him go. But they got him to fire a guy they liked almost 30-ish, 40-ish games into a season. It's pretty insane when you think about it. You know that meme that's like the little girl standing outside of like the house on fire kind of thing? Yeah, and she's just smiling. That is Rich Paul in the Sacramento Kings. Yeah, Rich Paul after he just lit your entire house on fire. Pickle D says, "I don't mean he'll be the next LeBron. I mean schematically he'll replace LeBron. Like I guess you have no choice. Like you've got to replace LeBron with somebody, and they do play the same position more or less." Hefty Lefty says, "They have a winning record when Bronny plays. Obviously, he is the answer. He is the human victory cigar." Hefty Lefty. He is the human victory cigar. The Stockton Slab says the Laker white boys are off limits. Well, I mean, they can play. I mean, they can actually play. All right, let's go ahead and take a second here to talk about this, because Big George said it, and I was going to bring it up here because I saw it during the break. He says, hello, gentlemen. Happy Friday. TGIF. Sad to hear that Greg Gumbel has passed away at the age of 78. I always felt like he was an underrated sports announcer. I always liked the games he did. Rest in peace. And I don't know if he was underrated. And maybe that's just because I work in broadcasting and I was a very big broadcasting nerd as a kid. So I knew all the broadcasters because I wanted to be like them. And who didn't want Greg Gumbel's career? The man was, look, first off, a fixture of college basketball, which you know that I love. I've loved college basketball since I was a little kid. Greg Gumbel, basketball on CBS, he's about as iconic as it gets as far as college hoops goes. Then, over the length of his entire 52-year career, this man has called the Olympics. He has called Super Bowls. He has called NBA finals. He's just done everything. And now, well, he's gone. And that really does suck. I do think that, when you talk about the gold standard of broadcasting, Greg Gumbel's up there. He's up there. And I don't know that he was underrated. I think that he was one of the professionals that didn't take over the broadcast. And there are some guys who took over the broadcast and you enjoyed it. You noticed a game that was being called by, Pat Summerall and John Madden. You know that game. But also the guys that don't stand out so much, the guys that let the game take over, there's so much value in that. There's just so much merit in that. They're just players and they're just broadcasters that you see them and you lose them and there's just not going to be another guy like that. There isn't going to be another Greg Gumbel. There just isn't. And I do feel bad about that. Rest in peace to a legend. So we've got some text coming in. People did not like that I called Bronny a human victory cigar. Did I hear you be all in for them lighting Bronny on fire? I don't think literally lighting Bronny on fire. I think when Bronny is in the game, that is how you know the Lakers have won the game by a lot, usually.
Or down a lot.
Or down a lot. That's true. There are just some players, okay, he's on the floor, the game's over. You don't have to see the score. If you are watching a Laker game and you see Bronny out there, they're either up by or down by 20, and there's 3 minutes left in the game. That's what's happening. Coom says, whatever happened to Bronny being the last player ranked in the G League, but then I see him averaging 30 points per game. Do you see him averaging 30 points per game in the G League? He had a 30-point game. He is not averaging 30 a game. I promise.
No, but also keep in mind too, the organization that he plays within on the G League, Rich Paul is still his agent. Rich Paul has an influence on how the G League team plays, as does LeBron, believe it or not.
Well, I believe that very easily. Yeah,
it absolutely has to be a part of the South Bay Lakers strategy to give Bronny James many field goal attempts, whether or not there's a direct correlation between that and winning the game. That part is irrelevant. The South Bay Lakers are Bronny's vehicle right now to be able to show whatever he's got. So even his stats on here, I mean, and actually I'm pulling them up right now. He's currently averaging 13.4 points per game, but he's averaging, as far as how many shots he's taking per game, 14.4. So he is scoring less points per game than the amount of shots he is taking. And keep in mind, every shot's going to be worth at least 2 or 3 points. Those numbers, that is not lining up the right way. No, your points should outnumber the amount of shots you take.
Yeah. So I don't know where you heard the guy was averaging 30 points a game.
He's averaging a cool 21% from the 3-point line right now.
There's no chance, Coop. There's a zero chance. Now you might have heard that he scored 30 in a game. I know this because he scored 30 and then ESPN covered it literally all day. He is the only person I've ever seen. He scored 30 in a G League game and it was top of the morning news. I hate ESPN so much. Jesus Christ. Kiss the Cook says, Bronny, isn't that the name of paper towels? I mean, also that. I find the paper towels to be much more useful. Watching Bronny play basketball is hard to do. And I'm not rooting against him. I'm really not. But he just isn't good. And I don't feel the need to pretend like he is doing something that he isn't doing. Coop says, yeah, you're right. But I'm just saying, Coop. He's there. He's playing. I'm not going to sit there and say he's playing well. Bat Flipper says, I take 8 shots a day. How are you still standing? Like your texts are alarmingly cogent for a person who either is on his way to or has taken 8 shots in a day. I need to get on your level. Buffalo Mike, I see your text. I will not be going there. I will not be going there. No, I don't know what to tell you. But I see it. But I see it. Not ignoring you. So let's go ahead and move along now, because the NFL has done something. I saw the ratings for the NFL versus the NBA on Christmas Day, and I'm not surprised, but I am surprised. I'm not surprised that the NFL had higher ratings than the NBA. I am surprised at how many people watched those football games on Christmas. And the reason I'm surprised is because the games were bad. And I don't think that we have to hide this. The games were terrible. And the NFL still can't get us to stop watching. The Ravens are beating the Texans into the dirt, to the point where it's like, man, call off the dogs. These guys have a family and it is Christmas. Like, I haven't seen anything that bad on Christmas since like watching A Christmas Carol. You shouldn't do that on Christmas Day. They did. They absolutely just ran the Texans into the ground. Beyonce was there. It was a whole thing. And then we got to watch another bad game later with the Chiefs and the Steelers. First half was fine. Second half was clearly getting away from Pittsburgh. And we watched that too. And I was stunned when I saw the NFL ratings versus the NBA ratings on Christmas Day. Not because I thought the NBA ratings would be high or even close, but because I just thought the NFL ratings would at least be a little bit lower. Instead, what we got on Christmas Day was, and seeing if I can pull up the numbers here. First off, the NBA had their most watched Christmas since 2019. So like it was a great day for the NBA on Christmas. And, you know, me and Dylan talked about this the other day. Like, the games were really good for the most part. Like, there were so many fun games throughout the day on Christmas. They averaged 5.2 million viewers. The NBA did. But when you look at what the NFL was able to do on that same day, Ravens Texans peaked at 27 million viewers. Was that the beginning? Because the game wasn't good. Chiefs Steelers had an average audience of over 24 million viewers. The NBA all day averaged 5. And the games were better. The NBA games, if you want to talk about competitiveness, if you want to talk about individual player performances, if you want to talk about all these things, the NBA games were just objectively better than the 2 games we got on Christmas. And the NFL still dominated.
I'm curious, like, how much of that is people trying to see Beyonce? And granted, like, that shouldn't skew things so much, but I think there's people out there that, like, on Christmas Day, they're like, oh, like, we're definitely not missing Beyonce. Like, let's just throw on Netflix now. You know, I mean, these are people that wouldn't be watching NBA anyway.
Yeah.
But they're probably people that maybe don't watch football that religiously, but Beyonce's a huge draw.
Yeah,
I mean,
the Beyonce part of the broadcast. I need to go find that. It's not in the article I ended up pulling up, but the Beyonce part of the broadcast, it was a very high moment of as they were tracking the data.
It was well, and look, I mean, they basically gave that game like a Super Bowl-esque kind of, you know, halftime type of production, and I mean, they nailed it. Like, it was great.
Yeah, Killer Rabbit, I disagree with you. He says we all know NBA only matters in the fourth quarter. If you don't like the sport, there is literally no sport you couldn't argue that for. If you don't like baseball and you just show up in the 9th innings of games, you'll have a good time. It's everything you like about baseball. Plus, you don't have to be there for the whole game. You can show up for just the fourth quarter of a football game and be perfectly fine. If you like it, you show up for the whole game. If you don't like it, you either don't show up or show up late. But he says NFL rules. I agree that they rule. That's what we're talking about. But the games were ass, Killer Rabbit. The game didn't matter in the first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter for Ravens-Texans. There was no quarter where that game was good. And you would rather watch that than an NBA game? I just crazy. It's absolutely crazy. If you were still watching Texans and Ravens in the second quarter, I think you have lost your mind.
Now, like, I mean, if you're, you know, in the actual market of the team
Yeah,
that is doing
if
the
that's
beating,
your team,
then I get
yeah.
it.
If you're a Baltimore fan,
Savor that thing,
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, cherish it, you know, relish it.
and if you were a Texans fan who maybe just, you know, that's just your team, that you're a ride or die fan, you just watch no matter what, that's you too. The rest of America, like I didn't watch that. I'll just be
I was, yeah.
I saw the first
did not
quarter
see it.
and I had seen enough. I didn't watch it. Why? If the games are bad, getting 15 to 20 million more in ratings is insane to me. I don't think the NBA would be close. And of course, like there are some differences too. Like the NFL's got 17 games, whereas the NBA has 82. So each NFL game is valued more. But man, when the games suck, turn that thing off. You don't have to sit there and watch bad football.
You know, the NBA learned something too. I mean, going back to the Christmas Day games, anytime you pair LeBron James and Steph Curry in anything, like you're going to get record viewership. And case in point, when the Lakers and the Warriors played on Christmas Day, that was the high point of the TV ratings viewership for the NBA. That game saw an average of 7.76 million viewers. It peaked at 8.32 million viewers, and it was the most watched game in that same 5-year span, and a 500% increase from the last year's game in that same window, which was a game between the Sixers and the Heat. But, you know, then you actually focus on that game, and that one literally came down to the final shot. Austin Reeves had a wild layup with like a second left to steal that game away from the Warriors after Steph Curry hit an unbelievable three-pointer that looked like it was going to be forcing overtime when the Warriors were down like 9 points with 2 minutes left. I mean, it was box office. It was incredible TV to watch. So, I mean, you want to actually compare the literal products. And yes, this does require you to just be a fan of basketball and of football. But if you are, the better TV was the NBA.
Yeah, it just was. That isn't to say that the NFL isn't great more often than not. But the games that they have put out in the last 3 days have been some of the worst football this season. And people still watched it. Now, there's some great points being made about why that might be the case. A lot of fantasy football being referenced there. We'll get to those texts on the other side. We'll also get to Bat Flipper, who has a very strong opinion about De'Aaron Fox, in that he doesn't think De'Aaron Fox is worth the money and therefore worth the leverage that he seems to hold over the Sacramento Kings. We'll get to Bat Flipper's texts as well. You're listening to the Daily Blender right here on 1580 The Fanatic.
Okay, I have to tell you, I was just looking on eBay where I go for all kinds of things I love, and there it was.
That hologram trading card. One of the rarest. The last one I needed for my set. Shiny like the
designer handbag of my dreams. One of a kind. eBay had it, and now everyone's asking, ooh, where'd you get your
windshield wipers? eBay has all the parts that fit my car. No more annoying. Just beautiful.
Whatever you love, find it on eBay. eBay. Things people love.
Is reviewing life insurance on your to-do list? Now's the perfect time to add it. A friend recently told me that securing life insurance sooner rather than later can help you lock in lower rates for years to come. So I bumped this up on my list and got it done. I called SelectQuote and couldn't believe how easy and affordable life insurance is. I'm 40 and got a $500,000 policy for $16 a month. My husband's also 40, and his $500,000 policy was only $18 a month. Plus, with SelectQuote's same-day coverage, there was no medical exam required, and we were covered by the time we hung up. Knowing I have this checked off my list feels amazing, but the peace of mind knowing my family is protected feels even better.
Call SelectQuote at 1-800-694-1010. That's 1-800-694-1010. Or go to selectquote.com to get your free quote today. 1-800-694-1010. Details on example rate at selectquote.com.
Attention! Have you racked up $10,000 or more in credit card debt? Are you barely getting by making minimum payments? With credit card debt reaching all-time highs, National Debt Relief is notifying consumers about significant debt relief options currently being made available to help those with overwhelming credit card debt. These options may reduce a large portion of credit card debt for those who qualify. You don't need to declare bankruptcy or take out a consolidation loan, and you may only have to pay back a fraction of what you owe, even if you have bad credit. National Debt Relief has already reduced the credit card debt for more than 550,000 consumers. So don't wait. If you owe $10, $20, or even $100,000 in credit card debt, you can now take advantage of this financial debt relief as the cost of living continues to skyrocket. To check what debt reduction you may qualify for, call 800-908-8585. 800-908-8585. Again, that's 800-908-8585.
Saturday, it's NFL football on the Fanatic.
The Chargers are in control of their postseason lives, but they have to take care of business against the Patriots first. It's late December in New England, which means weather could be a factor as well. And the Patriots are working on their future. Chargers at Patriots, 10:30 a.m. Saturday morning.
You're home for live NFL action, the playoffs, and Super Bowl 59. 1580 The Fanatic, and always on at 1580thefanatic.com.
Oklahoma. Oh, lost the Navy earlier today. I'm not saying I'm not chuckling, but I'm not chuckling. You know what I mean? Killer Rabbit on the text line said the only reason the NBA ratings were that good is because everyone got bored of watching It's a Wonderful Life on a loop. Look, you can try to I don't know what point you're trying to drive here. We get it. You don't like basketball. Guy who doesn't like the NBA is like my least favorite guy because not unlike every Porsche driver I ever met, they'll tell you. Like I don't like the reason why I know anybody that doesn't like the NBA is because they went out of their way to tell me. Like, I don't know what you want me to tell you, man. You don't like the NBA. You don't like basketball. You only show up in the fourth quarter. That's you. The rest of us who were watching saw good games. If you like watching sports that are good, that's what we watched. If you were watching just football on Christmas Day and nothing else, you watched bad athletics. And if you watched it the day after, yesterday, you watched the worst game of the year between the Seahawks and the Bears.
And you know, like, say what you want about like a lot of the other games on the slate, but at least when it comes to like LeBron James, like this guy is about to turn 40 years old. He is just playing unbelievably well. Like, I mean, you compare this to other sports, and Tom Brady's like the only other person that really kind of comes to mind of someone that performed at such a high level, you know, when they're getting up into their 40s. So, I mean, any opportunity that you get now to see a guy like LeBron score over 30 points on Christmas Day against another legendary, competitor,
two Hall of Famers
and Steph Curry. I mean, I'm genuinely just entertained just seeing a full game of LeBron because I mean, everyone takes this stuff for granted. Like these guys are not.
We are close to the end of the road for a guy who might, outside of Michael Jordan, in my opinion, be the best basketball player I've ever watched with my own two eyes.
And honestly, another guy, if you haven't given him a chance yet, Victor Wembanyama. I mean, he's just such a unique specimen of a human being.
We've just never seen a guy that big, move that well. He handles the basketball like a guard, but he's 7'4". He can shoot the three ball. He also plays in the post. He can also pick and roll. Defensively, his instincts are elite. Like, we've just never seen a guy that big put all of it together. And at least so far, he's been able to stay healthy.
I mean, genuinely entertaining just to watch him. It doesn't even have to be in like a fourth quarter close game situation. Like Wemby just starts very exciting little instances of, you know, he gets a really crazy block on one end, he goes down and he grabs some unbelievable alley-oop pass, you know, and does something that like you've just never seen. And he does it very casually.
Watching NBA players be scared bleepless of Wemby because they can't figure out how to get to the basket if he's even 2 steps away from it, because he will block your shot and send it into the fourth row every time. And it's just like watching a kid play his dad, but I'm watching grown-ass men
scared of Victor Wembanyama. It's pretty it's great.
The first time that he played the Sixers last year, and it was the first time that him and Embiid played. And there was this little clip of like, they're doing their warm-up shooting before the game, and Embiid walks up to Wembanyama, and he's looking the other way. He doesn't see this, but like Embiid's trying to kind of like size him up because he rarely plays against people that are taller than him. And he's like literally looking up, and he's like, oh
yeah,
oh, wow.
I don't know what to do about that.
This guy is as tall as they say he is.
Yeah, there are some players, you make fun of Kyler Murray all the time. Like, are you really that tall? Like when they measured you, were they lying? They were not lying about Victor.
Not at all.
They were not. Killer Rabbit says, "I like you. I like you too, man. It's fun, fiery. Let's go back and forth." I'm a big fan of arguing. You're just gonna have to know that about me. Most people who find out that I'm a big fan of arguing tend not to like me. So I'll take that. Coom says, "I think fantasy football had more playoff people that required them to watch the NFL over the NBA." And maybe the NBA can figure out its fantasy thing, because like fantasy basketball exists. And we have on, the king of fantasy football, Scott Engel, but he also does a lot of fantasy basketball. He does fantasy everything, to be honest. But he does the basketball stuff too. It exists. It just isn't as big as the NFL. I don't know how you could ever make it that, but could you make it big enough that people are watching games they don't care about? That's the only thing I think the NBA really struggles with, because the NFL can get you to watch a game that's an absolute blowout if you've got two players playing and it's your championship game.
Yeah, the issue with fantasy basketball is like if you're really in it to win it and you're trying to do it the right way, it is just a completely different kind of grind than a NFL fantasy league where, you've got one set of games going each week. There's really only going to be maybe one or two times each week that you're going to kind of go through your roster and you're going to, make your decisions of who's going to play, who's not going to play. Like for NBA fantasy, you have to pay attention to that thing every single day. You have to pay attention to which players are available on the waiver wire every single day. And if you're not maxing out your ability to drop and add players every single day, then like you're just putting yourself in a hole. So it does just require a lot of attention. I used to religiously do fantasy basketball, and then over time it wasn't so much that I wasn't into the grind. I couldn't find another 7 people that were going to do it like me.
That's the thing.
No one else was doing it like me, and I was dominating every league, so then it was just kind of like, all right, whatever.
There's nothing to gain there. Okay, Bat Flipper, I'm going to save your text for the end here because we've got a lot of the football stuff. The Underpainter says, "I'm in the championships." He says, "I was just watching the game because I had Lamar and Henry in my fantasy football team. But after they benched them, I stopped watching." Yeah, that's the big draw for a lot of people. Fantasy football pulls in a lot of folks. I'm in a fantasy football championship right now with money on the line, so I get it. But also, I was drunk with my family, so and family and friends like that. That's where I was at. Big George says, "Keon, those Netflix Christmas games were streaming hot pile of garbage. Also, the game was buffering a lot at the beginning between HD quality and what looked like NES picture quality. Also, when the second game started, it kept going to the beginning of the first game when I clicked live. Unacceptable. I've never had an issue once with Amazon Prime's Thursday night coverage, but Netflix has some serious issues. I hope the NFL looks elsewhere for their Christmas game coverage, as Netflix, shockingly, is not ready for prime time." Big George, I got bad news for you. Netflix writes a very big check. When the NFL is like, who wants to broadcast this game? The number that Netflix puts on that check is big enough that it doesn't really matter.
Well, and then the NBA, also has their arrangements with Disney, to be on ABC and ESPN all day long, and Hulu. So then it kind of, it takes away from the potential, companies that could come in and maybe try and, purchase a Christmas Day game, that they could air. And actually, this just kind of came to mind. Turner could maybe put their hat in the ring now that they've kind of had this breakup with the NBA. I mean, they weren't doing anything that notable on Christmas Day.
Like not
that
at all.
That could be an opportunity. You might eventually see a Christmas Day NFL game on like TNT, TBS.
Yeah, I mean, if you were Netflix, I think the smart thing to do there would be, why don't you simulcast? Because if you can do that, then you might have something. Now, Turner does have this weird partnership with Hulu, who's connected to Disney. I don't know how that's all going to work out, because I am not a broadcast executive. One of easily the most boring jobs that exists. Bat Flipper is looping us back around to the Kings. He says the Kings are nice, but Fox is not a top 30 player. Don't know what they expect. Curry is a beast, and what he did on Christmas makes me think I would take him over Magic. That's a hard one for me to say because Magic was my dad's favorite player, and I am insanely biased. If I saw Magic Johnson, I think that's the only person I'd be starstruck by. I don't know what I'd say to the guy, because he just is that legendary in my life personally. But to the De'Aaron Fox is not a top 30 player. What do you say to that, Dylan? Because I think he is.
I absolutely think he is.
I think he is. I can't think of 20 of 30 guys better than him.
I'm pulling up and granted, because I don't think this really still applies now, but the NBA rank, at the beginning of the season, and where everyone was positioned on there. De'Aaron Fox was number 26.
Yeah, that seems right for him.
2023, he was ranked 23rd. And look, as of right now, and the way he's playing, for someone to be top 7 in the NBA in scoring, I think that does put you in that top 30 player category.
Yeah, especially in a league where the rules have been tweaked enough that offense is the most important thing that you bring to an NBA court. Players who are bad at defense, and De'Aaron Fox isn't, by the way, he's a very good defender, but players who are bad at defense, you can hide them a little bit. When we're talking about a guy that could score top 7 in the league and is a solid defender, you just by definition are going to be a top 30 guy.
Well, so far this season, he's played in every single game, hasn't missed a single one. And there is a value to that. As we've talked so much about Luka Doncic not being available, Domantas Sabonis, his all-star teammate, wasn't available for them last night. That cost them. De'Aaron Fox has been like the only constant really on the Sacramento Kings this season. He's averaging a career high in minutes right now, 37.2 minutes per game. Hasn't missed a single game.
Put the team on his back, though.
I mean, just crazy usage. He is currently having a career high free throw shooting year. He's 81% right now on the free throws. And then he is also getting close to his career high on assists. He's averaging just over 6 assists per game. The thing about this that you have to try and kind of envision is, how does De'Aaron Fox potentially look in someone else's system on a completely different team? And I'm just going to use the Lakers, for example, here. Like, if I'm De'Aaron Fox and I have the choice between playing with DeMar DeRozan and Domantas Sabonis or LeBron James and Anthony Davis, and then I also get to go move to LA too, I really like that LA option.
Yeah, no, that does seem like it's up there. And like the Lakers find a way to make this stuff happen genuinely. Killer Rabbit says, I actually love college basketball. And yeah, like if there are people who love basketball, who love college and love the college product more than they like the NBA, they are different enough that what you get out of the college game, you don't necessarily get out of the NBA and vice versa. I like them both. I watch them both. And I feel the same way about college football, by the way. Like, I think college football is just different enough. It's not the NFL. Like, it's its own thing. So there are fundamentals in college that kind of don't necessarily exist in the NBA because the spacing's a little bit different. The shooting is better at the NBA level. And that does make the geometry of the floor a little bit different. But hey, if you love college basketball, I'm happy for you. And we'll have plenty to talk about once the college football season wraps up and we get to college basketball dance party season. Big George says, I get it, Keon. You would be starstruck by Magic Johnson. I would be starstruck by Perry Mason or Joe Pesci for my cousin Vinny. It's all relative. The amount of times, and maybe there's just something I'm missing, the amount of times that my cousin Vinny, specifically that movie, has been referenced on this show since I've been working here. I don't understand. Is that a great movie? Like, I heard it was good. Like, it was like a solid movie, but like genuinely, that movie comes up maybe 2 or 3 times a year, and I've never seen it in my life. Pickle D says, so then what is he bitching about? Okay, Pickle D, I need you to like re-add the context of what you were talking about, because you sent that text long enough ago. I don't recall. Oh, okay. De'Aaron Fox. What is De'Aaron Fox bitching about? De'Aaron Fox didn't like the direction the team was going in because they weren't They weren't competitive in the postseason, and they were starting to not be competitive this season. 5-game losing streak, a lot of screw ups and crunch time in the crunch time of games. And Rich Paul, and this is just, reported from a couple of weeks ago, Rich Paul, De'Aaron Fox's agent, essentially went to the top brass of the Sacramento Kings and told them, I want this to be a different situation where we're more competitive. And they fired Mike Brown today. They Lane Kiffined him. They fired him right before they boarded the plane. So I don't know exactly what this is supposed to fix. The good scenario for De'Aaron Fox, for the Kings, is that every now and then we see it happen in the NBA. Teams get a boost from the interim coach stepping in. Like, guys kind of rally around the interim coach, rally around each other, and then they have a better season than they normally would have. But the other end of it is, if things don't go well, if you lose another 5, then what do? You've just made the team worse potentially for what potential reason? I don't know. Pickle D says, if he's the go-to option, sounds like a personal problem. I mean, it isn't, and it isn't. If the play calling is the reason, and I'm not saying that it is, I'm saying that he might feel that it is, or at the very least, Rich Paul, his agent, who has an alarming amount of influence on not just this team, but a bunch of teams in the league. If Rich Paul felt that way, then that's how we got here. And I have heard this a number of times. I think Jalen Rose used to say it all the time. You don't always get what you deserve in life. You get what you have the leverage to negotiate. And if you're Rich Paul, for whatever reason, you have an insane amount of leverage to negotiate whatever it is that you want. Bat Flipper says, I love Fox, but he wouldn't be my first pick to start a franchise, even if I had the last pick. I said, I think Curry over Magic. Not that I do. So you were thinking about Curry over Magic, not that you actually have Curry over Magic. If you did, I wouldn't say you were crazy. I can't. Personally, I have a bias that includes Magic Johnson. I just think that the guy, ball handling and passing, I just think that he is absurdly skilled, and just the way that he played the game is the most fun thing I think I've ever seen. I didn't see him live. I'm way too young, but I watched a lot of recorded tapes because my dad wanted me to know. So that's kind of how I wound up there. But if you did take Curry over Magic, like with the career that Curry has had, I wouldn't call you crazy. Like, that would be at least the conversation that we could have, and it would make sense. T-Licious says, I liked Leandro Barbosa till he started. Oh boy. Until he started having relations with Steve Nash's wife.
I was about to
a big part
like,
of how the Suns fell apart and sucked for years, which fair as a hard point to argue. Won't say it how you phrased it. But yeah,
I had a feeling he was going there with that.
Someone was gonna bring it up, I'm sure.
That whole thing is to me, it really is just like a rumor. Like, no one has really ever been able to
it's never been like solid evidence. There's not like, photos of Barbosa going into the Nash house while he's not there.
Well, and then Jason Richardson had some involvement in this whole thing too.
God,
it was but rumors.
Know that.
I mean, but they're rumors. I don't think any of that stuff actually ever happened.
I mean, because the stuff that tends to happen tends to leave a paper trail, Matt Barnes driving to Derek Fisher's house.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
That stuff tends not to be rumored. Like, we just know that it happened.
Well, and this thing was juicy enough to where Steve Nash was on top of the sports world at one point, and that was much closer to when he was that big. You don't think TMZ would have really sent some people in to try and get a picture, or try and make some kind of a headline out of it? Because if you really try and go and dig into that story, you're not going to find any reputable media outlets saying anything about it. And then that's the part of it that makes me look at it and go, I don't think this really ever happened.
You're just going to need other sources on that. So we're way over. We're going to come back and reset a little bit, because I do have some other things I'd like to get to today, if I can find where I put my notes. And when we come back, we will get to me finding my notes right here on the Daily Blender on 1580.
Are you having trouble hearing? Hearing loss can devastate the quality of your life. Now, there's an affordable fix for you or your loved one. Rated in the best hearing aids of 2024 by USA Today, Audion Hearing has the highest quality hearing aids at the lowest prices. Just $189.
I actually like them better than my old $5,000 hearing aids.
I could not believe how my hearing and life changed.
Join over 500,000 happy customers by going to audionhearing.com. That's AUDIEN hearing.com.
Okay, I have to tell you, I was just looking on eBay where I go for all kinds of things I love, and there it was.
That hologram trading card. One of the rarest. The last one I needed for my set. Shiny like the
Designer handbag of my dreams. One of a kind. eBay had it, and now everyone's asking, ooh, where'd you get your
windshield wipers? eBay has all the parts that fit my car. No more annoying. Just beautiful.
Whatever you love, find it on eBay. eBay. Things people love.
Let's play Bet Your Life. It's the game show where you gamble not only your life, but those of your passengers and fellow drivers when you get behind the wheel after drinking.
If only it was just a game. It only takes one bad decision to change your life forever. Getting behind the wheel after you've been drinking is one of them. Don't play games that nobody can win. Drive sober or get pulled over. This message brought to you by NHTSA.
They're gonna go nuts when he hits this thing.
It went in. The People's Open is back. See the PGA Tour's best tee it up at the 2025 WM Phoenix Open February 3rd through the 9th at TPC Scottsdale. Get tournament and ticket info at WMPhoenixOpen.com. WMPhoenixOpen.com.
My pain is considerable, but that prescription is dangerous.
The side effects of my medicine are worse than my condition.
I'm in recovery. I can't take those pills.
When faced with a health crisis, you shouldn't have to choose between risks.
At the Naturopathic Physicians Group in Scottsdale, our medical doctors are experts in full spectrum care using a natural approach. Patients come in for a variety of issues, including joint pain, chronic conditions, and issues specific to men's and women's health. Our naturopathic doctors can restore pain-free joint function and restore balance in immune, digestive, and hormone systems, which often improves immediate physical symptoms without having you take a bunch of pills. If traditional medicines aren't working, don't you think it's time to start feeling like yourself again? Call Naturopathic Physicians Group at 480-451-6161. That's 480-451-6161. Or go to naturopathicgroup.com.
1580 The Fanatic and at 1580thefanatic.com.
Your home for sports.
Speechless. I was speechless during the commercial break. And well, if you know me, I am not speechless very often. This is the last I will be entertaining the Steve Nash Barbosa rumors. T-Licious says the color of the child spoke volumes. Bat Flipper says that Nash's baby was darker than me, myself, and Irene's babies. Nash didn't even have to go on Maury. Have a great weekend, gentlemen. And all that doesn't prove that it was Jason Richardson. If she cheated, right? What does that prove? Except who she cheated with. We don't know the specific person. Does she look like Does she look like Leandro Barbosa? Does she look like him? Because I don't think so.
Yeah, to that, I would just say go ahead and Google Mateo Nash and then tell me what you think about his complexion, because I don't agree with that statement.
And also, I think people don't understand how genetics work, that you can have a recessive gene that just pops up. And I think that people just think that you just blend some colors and there you go. It's a little bit more complicated than that. And some of us needed to pass biology. So there that is. Pickle D, back to an area of life I'd like to discuss. I'm begging to go back to, let's talk about sports, which
let's just go. Let's go back to talking about basketball a little bit. Even though where we're headed next is MVP talk, because I think this MVP race between Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson is close. I'm not sure why it's close, and the person who is the clubhouse leader, I'm kind of unsure of that too. But Pickle D says Steph Curry completely changed the way the game of basketball was played and influenced an entire generation. I got him as my number one, and I don't think that's crazy. We're at the stage in Steph's career where when you look back on it, he has checked every box you would ask a player of his caliber to check if you're going to say he's a generational talent. There are a generation of kids, for better or for worse, that play the game like Steph plays the game. I think that it's not great for some kids to just start chucking up shots from, when they're 5. I think learning the fundamentals of the game is probably an important factor here, but they did. You can look at the spacing that NBA teams enjoy now because of the way the Warriors played, and it was Steph and it was Clay. It was that roster of guys that could shoot, but Steph was the guy because he's the guy that could handle the basketball and he'd get his own shot. And the release was crazy. He could just get any shot off from, it seemed like he had no space. Defenders just completely got him walled in, and he'd still get the shot off and he'd still make it. And it would be in big moments and clutch performances. Steph Curry just is that legit. I don't think it's that crazy to say Curry over Magic. If you took him over Magic, if you take Magic though, Magic also has the same accolades. I mean, we're talking about a guy who came into the NBA and then as a rookie played center in an NBA finals where he was the MVP and then proceeded to have one of the great point guard careers of all time. I would be lying if people didn't say that they wanted to play like Magic Johnson too, the no look passes and everything else. They are both people who have influenced the game of basketball greatly. You're not high if you say Curry over Magic, and I'm not even going to fight you on it. I don't necessarily agree. I've already explained why I'm biased about that, but I'm not going to fight you on it. I just really won't. He's up there. It's a conversation that just gets to be had because of the quality of the way that Steph played in his career.
Well, and I think there's something to be said for, you just bring such a unique skill set to the table that you individually are evolving the entire sport. I think back to Shaquille O'Neal as being someone that just brought a very unique combination of size and athleticism that it forced other teams to prioritize trying to counter him with very large, centers. And then there was this whole wave in the league of, you need to have, at least a 7-footer on your team because you're going to have your matchup against the Lakers, twice a season or 4 times a season. And you've got to be able to play inside to, play with them. And then eventually that kind of changed. And, Mike D'Antoni comes around. He introduces organized chaos. We get the run and gun Suns. That kind of takes the league by storm. D'Antoni eventually finds his way to Golden State, where now he's kind of helping Steve Kerr, implement that with the Warriors. That leads them, to winning championships. And now that's kind of the style that is just taken a foothold across the entire league. And now it's kind of getting to the point where, the next kind of innovative move, that next big change, at least what I kind of see on the horizon, is it's almost like a combination of the two. Now, everyone wants that big 7-footer who, can score you 30 points a game or could just kind of get you a casual triple double, someone that can play make, but can also hit the 3.
That everything is kind of a cycle that way. You have it in the NFL where you've got guys used to be, you built an offense around a running back. That's what you did. And now you can't really do that, except we're getting back to where you can get the Christian McCaffreys who are, I can run between the tackles. I can bounce it outside. You can also just line me up at wide receiver. I'll go downfield and catch a 25-yard bomb too. I'll do that as well. I can chip guys. You're looking for more versatile versions of the guys that you thought you were eliminating. Now you couldn't have a Victor Wembanyama without a Steph because you needed that first guy to be an amazing ball handler and shooter and everything else. Las Toby says Curry over Magic every day of the week and twice on Tuesday. Again, I will not be arguing this point. I just genuinely, we could go back and forth. I don't know who would have an edge necessarily. Magic wasn't a great shooter. Magic was an awful defender. But when you look at what Magic was able to do running the Showtime Lakers, like, and the runs that they had, it's an absolutely incredible. And he absolutely influenced the generation because, of course, I doubt you get the run and gun Suns without the Showtime Lakers. Like, there's steps along the way. And there are some players where I'm like, man, if Magic played in today's game and learned to shoot the way guys shoot, in addition to having his insane court awareness, like, what would he be? You could do that what if all day. We won't be doing that. But yeah, no, it's a very interesting argument to have, because I think it's one that a lot of people agree. Steph Curry is interesting, I think, as well, because you look at the number of kids that grew up trying to like play like Mike, like that I did. Like, I grew up in the Michael Jordan era. I remember the 98 finals. Like, we were all trying to be like Mike, but we couldn't, because Michael Jordan is one of the greatest athletes I've ever seen in my entire life. You also can't be Shaq. He's 7'2", 320, destructive. And like, young Shaq was fast and could jump out of the building. You can't be LeBron. He's a 6'8", 230-pound freight train with legs. Like, you can't be that as a kid. You look at Steph and you're like, Steph's like 6'3".
Like, if I just practice and I just shoot the ball enough, maybe one day.
Yeah, and there's a lot of kids that are now adults in the NBA precisely because they did exactly that. You know, they learned the work ethic and all of that. It's just you're closer to being Steph, and I say that in air quotes because you're not, but you're closer to being Steph physically than any of these other guys that are out there. And I think that that's what makes him special, is that he didn't have this insane physical advantage over anybody, and he was still able to dominate the game of basketball for roughly 10 years. So we're heading into hour number 3, and we're going to talk NFL MVP. That's coming up next right here on the Daily Blender on 1580 The Fanatic.
If you have unfiled taxes or are in debt to the IRS, this is important news. Did you know the IRS has programs specifically designed to help people struggling with tax debt? Powerful tax assistance programs that can save you thousands if you qualify. No one knows these programs better than the experts at Optima Tax Relief, America's most trusted tax resolution firm, A-rated by the Better Business Bureau. Their award-winning team of tax attorneys and licensed professionals have resolved over $1 billion of tax debt for their clients. One call to Optima can start the process, helping to end your worries about wage garnishment, asset seizure, and other IRS actions. Make sure you're getting the best options to solve your tax problems. Call the experts at Optima today for a free confidential consultation.
Call 800-709-7022. 800-709-7022. 800-709-7022.
Optima Tax Relief.
Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
Wesley Financial Group is not a law firm. An important message about your timeshare from Chuck McDowell, founder of Wesley Financial Group.
If you receive an unsolicited phone call or mail piece to discuss selling, renting, or especially canceling your timeshare, don't fall for it. Contact your timeshare resort or Wesley Financial Group for assistance, and I'll send you our timeshare exit information kit free with the straight facts about timeshare cancellation.
Call 800-761-0000. 800-761-0000.
Paid for by Wesley Financial Group.
In most countries of the world, Porte means door. United Porte Custom Doors, located in the Scottsdale Airport Design District, is now open with over 40,000 European doors, all in stock, ready for delivery, and at wholesale prices. Designers, contractors, builders, and yes, you. Come see our showroom on Greenway Hayden Loop. That's United Porte, Porte. Stop by to see and feel the quality at United Porte Custom Doors. Find us at uporte.com. That's uporte.com.
Let's play Bet Your Life. It's the game show where you gamble not only your life, but those of your passengers and fellow drivers when you get behind the wheel after drinking.
If only it was just a game. It only takes one bad decision to change your life forever. Getting behind the wheel after you've been drinking is one of them. Don't play games that nobody can win. Drive sober or get pulled over. This message brought to you by NHTSA.
The GCU men's basketball squad is coming off their winningest season in 35 years, their third trip to the NCAA tournament in 4 years, and their first ever NCAA tournament victory. Returning 4 of their 5 starters in Ray Harrison, Colin Moore, Duke Brennan, and reigning WAC Player of the Year Tyon Grant Foster, the Lopes look to defend their WAC titles and make a run to the Sweet 16. With a non-conference slate including Stanford, Georgia, and crosstown rival Arizona State, you won't want to miss a moment of the action. So join me, Michael Potter, and Lopes insider Paul Coro all season long right here on the home of the Lopes, 1580 The Fanatic. Lopes up.
KQFN Tempe. Also transmitting on K257 CD Phoenix at 99.3 FM and K240 EU Mountain Hills at 95.9 FM.
It's time for the third hour.
All right, people, settle down because it's time.
For what?
Showtime.
When does it start?
Right now. 3, 2, 1.
Let's get on with the show. Let's do it.
Welcome back to hour number 3 of the Daily Blender. Wrapping this thing up before we send you all to the weekend, and a lot of football. So much football tomorrow. We've got college bowl games tomorrow. We've got NFL games tomorrow. Cardinals, Rams. We'll talk about that a little bit later on as well, because Dylan and I feel very strongly that the Cardinals are going to make a lot of us look very silly. We'll get to it. We'll start with NFL MVPs, taking one last look at the text line. T-Licious says, just stirring the pot, Keon. Don't mind me. He was talking about the Leandro Barbosa, Steve Nash rumors. And T-Licious, I don't mind at all. That is what makes the Blender glorious, is when
we did not have it on our bingo card that we were going to be getting into that today.
Not at all. There's nothing in the notes about that today. No, it's always fun.
Good little surprise.
It's a good little surprise. Look, it wouldn't be a Friday edition of the Daily Blender, whether or not Jeffrey's here, whether or not Randy's here. We must be derailed. It's the rule. I don't know why it's the rule. The fourth dimension enforces it every single time, and I have a blast. Kyle G says the MVP should be Caleb Williams, as he's about to set the record for most sacks in a season. He truly is the most victimized player. If I weren't a Packers fan, I'd probably feel bad for the kid. Yeah, he's playing behind the offensive line that is the worst in football. It can't be worse than that. And I understand that some of that is his fault. Like that, what quarterbacks can bring sacks to themselves with the way that they play. And he does have a play style where he moves around a lot in the pocket, sometimes more than he has to. He doesn't necessarily get rid of the football quickly. Tries to maybe go a little bit big game hunting, but I think a lot of that has to do with A, the offensive line's not very good. B, they don't scheme him into making good decisions, which you can do because we're seeing it in Denver with Bo Nix. We're seeing it happen even in Atlanta with Michael Penix, and when they played the Giants. I'm not saying it was a perfect game for Penix, but they clearly wanted to keep him from being overwhelmed. They put very little on his plate, and they got the ball out of his hands quickly by the nature of the way the plays were designed. They're not designed that way in Chicago. They almost look like they're designed on purpose to get Caleb killed, which they do very frequently. So while we are talking MVP, Kyle G, we're not talking most victimized players. Honestly, I might write that down. That might actually be a future show topic idea at some point. We're talking most valuable player. And we've got obviously the two guys who have separated themselves from everybody else. That is Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. Now, the thing that I find really interesting about these two guys is that when I look at the games, when it's just eye test, Josh Allen jumps off the screen seemingly more to me. But today, I was actually going to talk about Josh Allen and the case that he has for MVP. And then I put his numbers up this season against Lamar's numbers. And I found something that absolutely blew me away, which is that Lamar, at least on paper, like if you're just looking at the stats, Lamar's a better quarterback than Josh Allen this year. It's not particularly close. Like that's the part that's also killing me. Josh is doing, I think, much better than Lamar is as far as running the football, which is also a weird thing to say because when you think about Lamar Jackson, that's largely what you think of is his explosive ability to run the ball. But when it comes to scoring, running the football,
Josh Allen has 11 rushing touchdowns to Lamar Jackson's 4, and that is one of the 2 statistical categories in which Josh Allen is better than Lamar. The other one being quarterback record, which is really just the records of their teams. Josh Allen is 12-3, Lamar Jackson this year 11-5. Everything else, and I do mean everything else, including their head-to-head matchup this season, the completion percentage, passing yards, yards per attempt, passing touchdowns, interceptions and interception rate, rushing attempts, rushing yards, and yards per attempt on the ground. Lamar Jackson is better at literally all of those things. I was absolutely stunned, and it's not close for some of them. Like when you look at the passing touchdown numbers, Lamar's thrown 39 touchdowns, nearly 40 to Josh Allen's 26. And yet Josh Allen is actually the MVP favorite. And I think a lot of that just has to do with like some of the just insane stuff that Josh Allen has absolutely done. I mean, the 6 touchdown game, he wound up losing that game. That game counts against him, but it wasn't his fault. He didn't give up the 44 points that the Rams would score that day. He did everything he could in that game. And I just think that for whatever reason, this year, the player who has the flashier play style and also kind of the narrative of turning around their team is Josh Allen. But when you look at the odds of this, Dylan, and I know this is more your zone, like that Josh Allen is far away from Lamar. It's not as close as the stats say that it should be. And if it's not close, you would almost, again, just looking at the numbers, put Lamar ahead of Josh, because there isn't a statistical category outside of rushing touchdowns that Josh Allen is better than Lamar at.
Well, and this is something that we have discussed from time to time on Beat the Book, and that's, the pricing of the odds within the MVP futures market for the NFL. It's really crazy how day by day, week by week, these things fluctuate. And I mean, you look at it right now, Josh Allen is still priced as the favorite to win the MVPs, minus 250 on FanDuel. Lamar Jackson right behind him at plus 180. But we know with the NFL MVP award that narrative really kind of drives it a lot more. And, you do have to take the stats into account. And that's something that Lamar definitely has an edge in when you compare them head to head. But as far as the narrative goes, when Josh Allen is getting a rushing touchdown, a passing touchdown, and then he's catching, a ball for a touchdown, like those kinds of things boost his narrative and then put him over the top. So at this point in time, with 2 games left for each of these guys, I don't see this as something that, Josh Allen has completely locked it up and is, it's his award. I mean, that is how it has looked at times. I mean, just a week or 2 ago, Josh Allen was minus 700, to win. Like it was as if he had totally locked this thing up. There's no chance that, anyone else is going to win this over him. Lamar Jackson was like somewhere between 6 and 8 to 1, like literally just a week or 2 ago. And all it takes is some kind of achievement, some kind of historic showing. And then all of a sudden that narrative flips into your favor. And Lamar got a pretty powerful narrative out of, one-upping Mike Vick's single season rushing record for a quarterback. And now he's starting to kind of get more momentum going back in his direction. Keon, we talked about this a little bit before we even went on with Beat the Book before. And I think it's pretty intriguing. Everyone kind of sweeps Saquon Barkley under the rug for this MVP thing.
Absolutely. Saquon is the other guy that I'm like, if you look at the numbers for Saquon, it is embarrassing how little we talk about Saquon in this MVP conversation. I understand part of what's working against him is that he's not a quarterback. And, obviously that's the most important position on the field. But when you're talking about a team like the Eagles, who looked like they were spiraling out of control and falling apart, and then Saquon joins the team. And that's literally the only thing that's really changed about Philadelphia between last season and this season, and especially this offseason for Philadelphia, where things look like they were falling apart. You add Saquon to that, and suddenly they look legitimate in a way that they hadn't before. And that's with all of the issues that we talked about yesterday with Sirianni. The GM hates the coach hates the quarterback and the GM. It's just a mess Saquon's a Band-Aid that you just slap on the Philadelphia Eagles and it looks like they have no problems. They're 12-3.
So I want to kind of throw something out there because I really don't feel like this is that far-fetched. Saquon Barkley at this point in time needs another, 264 yards or 268 yards is what Saquon Barkley needs to get in order to break that single season rushing yardage record. You know, he's going to face some criticism if it takes him 2 games to get it because the guy who currently has the record, Eric Dickerson, did it in 16 games. I don't think it's that far-fetched to say, you know, what if Saquon actually goes for it and just tries to get the full 268 against the Cowboys this Sunday? And what if he actually does it? I mean, keep in mind, the man has a 255-yard rushing game already this season. He did that on the road against the Rams. Now he's looking at facing a team that has an even worse rushing defense. His quarterback isn't going to be there. They need to win for the sake of playoff seeding. And it's actually going to benefit them to probably go a little heavier on the rushing game because Jalen Hurts isn't playing.
Yeah. In fact, I would argue that that's the main reason too, because I mean, did you see Kenny Pickett last week? He wasn't playing poorly, but you could tell that there were times he had guys open downfield and he just didn't have either the arm strength or the stones to make that throw. But either way, it was holding them back. And Saquon was the guy. I think that they're going to ride Saquon when they play the Cowboys this weekend. I think we're getting a lot of really good texts about this because, like, I'm not saying, by the way, that Lamar should win the MVP and Josh Allen shouldn't. Like, I'm not even going to make that case. What I'm saying is this is closer than what the narrative would suggest.
And you can't count out the boost in the narrative that Saquon gets if he does beat this record. I think he still has an extremely powerful narrative if it takes him 2 games to do it. But if he were to come out and rush for 268 or more yards against the Cowboys, how do you keep this thing from Saquon?
I have no idea. But genuinely, if you break Eric Dickerson's single season rushing record and you do it in 16 games, you give him the award. Just that is the most valuable player in football right there. And I know what the quarterbacks are doing, and I get it. So you have a lot of people on the text line with lots of opinions about this. T-Licious says Allen beat Kermit the Frog. Lamar didn't. Similar thing being said by Lost Toby, but Josh Allen beat Mahomes, which should tell you what people think of Mahomes, right? Like, you beat Mahomes. It's one game. We're talking about the MVP of a 17-game schedule. You beat one guy, and even though someone is washing you in every statistical category, that gets you the MVP. That's how good Patrick Mahomes is. Pickle D with a very long, well thought out response that I will read the entire thing of because I like it. He says, I think there are 2 factors hurting Jackson this year. A, he's won it twice, including last year. And we know how these voters don't like repeat winners if there are other options. B, Derrick Henry, in my opinion, has taken the Ravens from Super Bowl pretenders to contenders. What he's done this year and for that team has opened up the offense in ways they didn't have in previous years. Also, Josh Allen has done some insane things this year. And exactly, I don't want to take away from what Josh Allen has done. Josh Allen, for the span of weeks, I think from like week 14 to week 16, maybe week 13 to week 16, just looked like a video game. Like, every time you were watching Josh Allen, he's running through multiple players. He's hurdling guys. He's got games where he's rushing for 3 touchdowns and passing for 3 touchdowns. And it's the same game, which we've never seen a human being do at that position. I am not taking away from Josh Allen. I just think that this conversation got very far away from Lamar. And then when you look at the numbers, you're like, it's not that far. It really ought to be closer than that. And honestly, it's kind of neck and neck to me in a lot of ways. Moldy Tuna Fish says, love this expansion of Beat the Book to 4 hours. So insightful with the betting analysis. Does Jeffrey return next week, or will the Beat the Book marathon continue? I think Jeffrey's back next week. It's Christmas week, you guys. You got to cut some slack here. I didn't leave for Christmas, so I'm just here hanging out. Kyle G says Derrick Henry hurts Lamar's case with the voters. The he's got help argument. Lamar also hurts Derrick in his race against Saquon for Offensive Player of the Year. If Saquon beat the record, I'd vote for him for MVP. Me too. Like, that's a no-brainer to me. He breaks the record, especially if he does it in 16 games. But even if he were to do it in 17, I would still vote for him because I think that record is also going to stand for a good long while, even if he does it. So to me, that makes all the sense in the world. And I also agree with the Derrick Henry thing. And you weren't the only person who said that. Obviously, Pickle D mentioned that in his response as well, that Derrick Henry kind of hurts everything. The thing that's killing me again with Josh Allen and the Bills is we're talking about Josh Allen like James Cook isn't his running back. Now, don't get me wrong. James Cook is not Derrick Henry. James Cook is not Saquon Barkley. I am not trying to say that. But James Cook is a top running back in this league. Khalil Shakir has been amazing this year. Amari Cooper has been an awesome target for Josh Allen. Josh Allen also has help, is my point. Now, it's not Derrick Henry help. Derrick Henry changes a lot of things for people, but it's not like Josh Allen is running the Bel Air Academy offense with the Buffalo Bills where it's just get the ball to Will and get the hell out of the way. Like they're not bums on the Bills. That's a good roster. And there's a reason why we think that team can win a Super Bowl. And it's not all Josh Allen. It's that defense, and it's James Cook, and it's Amari Cooper, and it's Khalil Shakir and a bunch of other dudes. Big George says Eric Dickerson does not want Saquon Barkley to break his record. Too bad. So sad, Eric. Yeah, I mean, he didn't want what was it? He didn't want Adrian Peterson to break his record back in the day when Adrian Peterson got close. And Adrian Peterson, 9 yards short. 9 yards. Just that's like one more handoff for him, and maybe he gets it. Oh, well. Killer Rabbit says, I think Saquon is the MVP. He's right there. I think he ought to be right there. And when you look at the betting odds, it tells you, I think that
20-1 right now.
A lot of people don't think he's right there, but if you place that bet right now and Saquon breaks Eric Dickerson's record, that might work out for you. That's all I'm going to say about it. Lacrosse Guy says, oh my Josh, he is the MVP. Total unknown weapons, no digs, etc. I disagree. Now, if you want to say he's the MVP, I won't fight you too hard on that. Again, when I think something is close, I personally, my stance is, what's the point in arguing about something that's that close where we're just arguing minutia and nuance and being weird about it? Where I will disagree with you, though, is that he has total unknowns for weapons. That is just not true. That's just Amari Cooper is not a total unknown. They traded for him to get him some help. Josh Allen is not in the MVP conversation without Amari Cooper there. You could tell his game completely went to another level after they got Coop. And when they got Coop and they were able to use him alongside Khalil Shakir, who's having an awesome year, that those two guys, those are not no names. Maybe the average person on the street doesn't know, but if you're an NFL fan and you don't know who Amari Cooper is, I don't believe you're an NFL fan. The guy's been in the league forever. Used to be Dak's favorite weapon once upon a time. The only reason why we forgot about him is because he went to Cleveland, where every receiver goes to die. So, I mean, it's not his fault, but that's not an unknown. James Cook at running back, that's not an unknown. I say this, I have James Cook in fantasy football. I know nobody cares about my fantasy football team. I won't belabor the point. James Cook has single-handedly won me games this season. It's not Josh Allen out there doing it alone. And I think that's part of the narrative. That's part of the narrative, is that like Josh has no help, but Lamar's got Derrick Henry. Lamar does have Derrick Henry. Josh Allen has James Cook. Lacrosse Guy says Cooper has not done a lot so far. I disagree. If you look at the season Khalil Shakir is having, who I also have in fantasy football, Khalil Shakir is having a great season because Amari Cooper is a deep threat you kind of have to respect. So his numbers aren't great, but everybody else benefits. That whole offense got better. It's sort of like, and this is a bad example to use because they looked awful last night, but the Seahawks, DK Metcalf is the number one receiver in Seattle. Then Jackson Smith-Njigba. But Jackson Smith-Njigba puts up the bigger numbers because you have to game plan for DK. That's what Cooper brought to that team. That is not no help, and that is not total unknowns. He is not surrounded by random guys. Those are good football players on that team. I mean, it's a defense that gets torched very often, though. They got to do something about that. But I just think that this is a really close one. And honestly, Saquon breaks the record. You can just go ahead and forget about Lamar and Josh. I'm moving on to Saquon. I think Saquon probably wins it. And Saquon is a Philadelphia Eagle. I hate the Eagles, and I still think he should win it. That's how good Saquon Barkley has been this year. He's been amazing. Lost Toby says, I honestly forgot about James Cook. He flies under the radar. He really does. And that's not his fault that his quarterback is Josh Allen. And every week, it feels like Josh Allen does something I've never seen before in my life. Like I've just never seen a quarterback jump a guy, spin across another guy, and then stiff arm a third dude and then score a touchdown. I saw Josh Allen do that, and he did it 2 weeks ago. Like, how do you describe that? So I just think that Josh Allen has like this sizzle factor you just can't really deny. But I think that this is a closer MVP conversation than one it's getting credit for. And I just wanted to bring that to your attention, to file that across your desk. So we're going to move on here in just a little bit. And I'm going to talk some Cardinals, and I'm going to talk some Rams coming right up, because the Cardinals are in a game that's it's kind of pointless for them, but they can help out the Seahawks if that means anything. We'll talk about it next here on the Daily Blender right here on 1580 The Fanatic.
Breaking news, and this one is almost unbelievable.
Yeah, it's all about new customers at Bet365 because they get $150 in bonus bets when they bet $5. And even better, bonus bets can be used on the spread, totals, and player props.
There you have it. Bet $5 to get $150 in bonus bets. And see why. It's never ordinary at Bet365. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP. 21 plus only. Must be physically located in Arizona. Terms and conditions apply.
Wesley Financial Group is not a law firm. An important message about your timeshare from Chuck McDowell, founder of Wesley Financial Group.
If you receive an unsolicited phone call or mail piece to discuss selling, renting, or especially canceling your timeshare, don't fall for it. Contact your timeshare resort or Wesley Financial Group for assistance, and I'll send you our timeshare exit information kit free with the straight facts about timeshare cancellation.
Call 800-761-0000. 800-761-0000.
Paid for by Wesley Financial Group.
Hi, guys. Jeffrey O'Brien here. Have you ever gone to HarmonSolar.com? Well, you really need to, because everything you ever wanted to know about how solar power can save you big on your monthly electric bill is right there. It's online. Through your phone or through your computer, you can learn about tax credits, the equipment they use, look at how they do things for businesses as well as homeowners, see testimonials from happy customers, and I hear they got a pretty good podcast, too. Check it out. Go to HarmonSolar.com. That's HarmonSolar.com.
Now open in Scottsdale. It's United Forte Custom Door Showroom with 40,000 Euro doors and hundreds of state-of-the-art designs and finishes on display, plus kitchen cabinets, bathroom vanities, and more, all at wholesale prices. Builders, contractors, designers, and yes, you. Come see our showroom on Greenway Hayden Loop. That's United Forte, P-O-R-T-E. Stop by to see and feel the quality. United Forte Custom Doors. Find us at uporte.com. That's uporte.com.
Let's play Bet Your Life. It's the game show where you gamble not only your life, but those of your passengers and fellow drivers when you get behind the wheel after drinking.
If only it was just a game. It only takes one bad decision to change your life forever. Getting behind the wheel after you've been drinking is one of them. Don't play games that nobody can win. Drive sober or get pulled over. This message brought to you by NHTSA.
We put you so close to the game, you can almost smell the sweat.
Ooh, awkward.
GCU basketball is live on the Fanatic.
The GCU men's basketball team is live from Inglewood, California to take on San Diego in the West Coast Hoops Showcase. 4:30 p.m. Saturday.
Michael Potter and Paul Coro have the call live for GCU basketball on 1580 The Fanatic and always on at 1580thefanatic.com.
And we are back. Got a few texts about the MVP, so we'll wrap those up and then we'll move right along to a couple of things about the Cardinals. One, kind of getting into the Cardinals game itself, because I think a lot of people do not believe in the Cardinals this week. And after what they did last week, would you? I don't think you would, but I'm going to make a case for why
you probably should believe in the Cardinals. And the only reason why I know people don't believe in the Cardinals is that on Beat the Book, we have a Cardinals win probability contest where you can text in what you think the win probability of the Cardinals is going to be at halftime. And I won't give away anybody's guesses, but all I'm going to say is that the general trend of today is that that number's low. The number is very low. So we'll get into that in just a second. But on the text line, Pickle D says, I am still in disbelief that the Cardinals passed up on a chance to get DK Metcalf and opted for Andy Isabella instead. Let me look up where DK Metcalf got drafted, because I remember at the time when DK Metcalf was doing all of his workouts at the combine, a lot of people were out on DK for like the silliest stuff. They didn't like his ability to change direction. He had a horrible, like an awful cone drill time. And it was like for an athlete as explosive as DK, people were genuinely stunned at how slow it is that he did that. And it cost him a lot in the draft. And I'm trying to figure out now, because his 40 was really good, obviously big physical target. DK Metcalf went 64th overall. So I know it makes you sick that, DK Metcalf could have been a Cardinal, winds up going to the Seahawks instead, and the Cardinals get Andy Isabella. But DK got passed up by every team in the NFL twice, essentially, being taken at 64. Every team had a shot to draft DK Metcalf, and none of them did it, including the Seahawks, who did eventually draft him, but only after they passed up on him before. And that's because like scouts are not perfect. NFL general managers are not perfect. And sometimes you look and read too much into things. The cone drill only told you one aspect of DK. It told you, okay, there are routes that DK can't run. And what the Seahawks said was, well, what are the routes that he can run? Oh, he's just big and enormous. And if he runs a 9 route down the field and we get the ball in his hands, no one can stop him. Oh, gotcha. Well, yeah, let's do that. And I think that people were so concerned with, well, what are the different ways we're going to try and use DK? Just use him with the stuff he's good at. That's what coaching is. So unfortunate, because the difference between DK Metcalf and Andy Isabella is a lot, but it is what it is. Killer Rabbit says, Keon, you made me open my thoughts. I didn't think about Amari and Cook. Yeah, a lot of people don't, and it's not their fault. They're not bad football players. It's not Josh Allen's fault, except that it kind of is Josh Allen's fault because he does amazing stuff all the time. It overshadows his teammates massively.
There's actually some more things kind of coming out in relation to Mike Brown and the Sacramento Kings right now. They're starting to have some reactions get reported from other coaches in the NBA. Rick Carlisle, head coach of the Indiana Pacers, just had his whole press conference, and he let it be known that he is absolutely stunned, shocked, bewildered. This makes absolutely zero sense. And then just went on to vouch for, how Mike Brown is, one of the absolute foundations of integrity within coaching and just a complete stand-up guy. Jordy Fernandez, head coach of the Brooklyn Nets, who was Mike Brown's former head assistant coach with the Sacramento Kings, he said much of the same things. And now what's actually coming to light is that after the Kings blew their lead to the Pistons last night in the post-game press conference, Mike Brown actually made some comments criticizing De'Aaron Fox. De'Aaron Fox was the guy who was closing out on Jaden Ivey taking the game-winning shot, and he didn't really guard it the way that he should have. He played it a little too aggressively, where he should have been inviting the player to try and, make a shot closer to the basket. He played him a little bit too aggressively in the corner, which led to him fouling. And then that player, Jaden Ivey, also hitting the 3-pointer. This then gave the Pistons an opportunity to make a free throw, which they did, which, won them the game. So now, everything's really starting to kind of come together more. Mike Brown maybe criticized De'Aaron Fox a little too much. Maybe De'Aaron behind closed doors was like, hey, I'm not putting up with this. That is not on me.
I like De'Aaron Fox. I do. I disagree with whoever said earlier that he's not a top 30 player. but he's not a good enough player to be a diva like this. He just isn't. There's certain guys, they are worth the headache. You know, Shaq notoriously didn't really train in the offseason, kind of showed up overweight, played himself into shape, but he was Shaq. You'll live with it for Shaq. You're gonna live with that for De'Aaron Fox because I'm not. There's a lot of concern around like Luka Doncic and the way that he takes care of his body, or in the case of Luka, like doesn't really. But he's such a generational scorer of the basketball. Like those are headaches you're going to put up with. I don't know if anybody's putting up with this for De'Aaron.
Well, the Kings' new interim head coach in the meantime is going to be Doug Christie. So you got a new a former player now leading your team on the sideline. I mean, look, sometimes players like playing for former players.
Yeah,
I mean,
especially like maybe it's not like a long-term thing, but the interim guy being a former player just somehow works a lot. It does. Let's see. Lost Toby says Josh Allen didn't reverse hurdle someone, though. That's a good point. That's a very good point. Because Saquon, I've never seen that. When you watch college football, high school football, pro football, like every level of the game, you'll never see a guy do what Saquon did. I don't know if Saquon could do it again. Yeah, he could. He's talented. I don't want to say nice things about the Eagles anymore. Big George says, hey, maybe we could have had DK Metcalf, but we have the future Hall of Famer Marvin Harrison Jr. on our team. Sarcasm intended. Well, don't sarcasm intended that. He's a rookie, and he looked like a rookie. He said, can I purchase a Marvin Harrison Jr. jersey yet? We'll be able to purchase one when he is released by the Cardinals after 5 disappointing years. Big George, I'm not even going to respond to that. He's had one season and he started slow. And I would beg people to go back and see the beginning of Jamar Chase and all the passes he dropped. And the fact that when people asked him, why are you dropping so many passes? He said the ball in college has the stripe on it and the NFL ball does not have the stripe on it. That looked like that was an awful decision before it wasn't. Have some patience with rookies. Just because, someone is highly touted coming into the league doesn't mean that they can't ever figure anything out. We've seen this happen before. Wide receiver is not an easy position of football to play. Some guys can do it well. Some guys take a little bit more time. It's about player development at this point. Don't write the kid off. He just got here. Moldy Tuna Fish says, if we are losing to the Pistons as the baseline for firing a coach, how long does Mike Budenholzer have before after losing to the Pistons? He's got more. He's got enough. And the reason why is because none of the players on his team actively hate him enough to get Rich Paul, their agent, involved in getting them fired. Which is what, by the way, just what happened to Frank Vogel last year. The agent wasn't involved, just flat out. Suns players did not like playing for Frank Vogel. End of sentence. Kevin Durant was the main one.
Well,
so you're gone.
The general sentiment about this on like NBA Twitter right now is that Mike Brown is a scapegoat and this is not on him. And this is much more on the GM and ownership. And it has to do with the literal makeup of the team right now, more so than the X's and O's of what the coach is, telling them to do.
Yeah, and I think for once, I guess I agree with NBA Twitter. The thing that's crazy about the Mike Brown firing is that, like, to have a guy be a scapegoat, what you have to also be able to do is change direction so that he actually looks like a scapegoat. And I don't know how the Kings change direction from what they are. So, like, maybe Christie comes in and they elevate their play and he's a former player and a player's coach and they all get excited and play for him. But the version of this where if they lose 5 more games, now you've got a scapegoat who actually looks cleaner than the team that cut him, because
you're going to start trending very close to a fire sale. Because look, there's people out there that would love to trade for Domantas Sabonis. I mean, if you're sending De'Aaron Fox away, I have to imagine Sabonis is going to, get sold. You got to sell while he's high. And then it just so happens that you're coming up on a summer where we have a historic draft class coming in, a lot of talent.
You may not get Cooper Flagg because he's going to be the first guy taken. I don't know if the Kings can be bad enough for that. But You've got Ace Bailey in this draft. You got like a bunch of guys coming in here where like the first 5 picks could all be lottery picks and be the number 1 pick in any other year. Like you could genuinely look at this draft and go, guys, 2 through 5 might have been the first pick in the draft this last year. All of them.
Right.
So that's where the Kings are going to probably be headed if they don't turn this thing around. And like Mike Brown's going to come out of this clean. Like it doesn't make sense to make him the scapegoat this early in the year. I think the wheels are going to come off of this thing.
I think
personally,
Steve Kerr has probably had the biggest smile on his face like over the last 3 hours, and I would not be shocked at all if the Warriors gladly welcome
bring him back to the
Mike
staff.
Brown, come on back home. We got a seat for you right here on the bench. They would love nothing more than that.
Damn, Pickle D. Pickle D is out here cooking De'Aaron Fox. He says, "Aw, poor little man got his feelings hurt." Yeah, he did. And he got his coach fired, and it's about to get worse. It's about to be so much worse. Marvin Harrison will be amazing, says Killer Rabbit. He also says in fantasy, all wide receivers are great their sophomore year. I found that when you get a guy in year 2, the game slows down for them a little bit. We talk about this with quarterbacks a lot, but it's true for every position. There are guys that we've seen come into this league, struggle at left tackle. They figure it out year 2. They struggle at wide receiver, tight end, whatever the position is, and they figure it out year 2. For Big George to be talking about Marvin Harrison Jr. as a disappointment after not even a full season of Cardinals football is nothing short of absolutely insane to me. Boy, I mean, granted, it's Big George. Are we surprised? Big George is like that. He calls for the firing of people way earlier than he should. So if you're out on Marvin Harrison Jr., like I'll tell you right now, I'll take him off your hands as a Commanders fan. I'd love to get Jaden Daniels and Marvin Harrison Jr. Don't be so excited to run players out of town that just got here that have potential, but you haven't seen it yet. He may never realize that potential, but also he might figure it out. He might figure it out. Just give him some time. He's young. And also, you know, maybe if you had a more consistent quarterback throwing him the ball, you could rely on him in a very different way. Let's cut him some slack. So real quickly before we head out and come back, I think that the Cardinals are going to be very competitive against the Rams on Sunday, if for no other reason than this game does not matter. And what we notoriously see from the Cardinals is that when the games have pressure, this is to keep the division. This is to get the division lead. This is a playoff game, especially in the Kyler Murray era. When the games have pressure, the Cardinals fold, Kyler folds. This game is about as free a game as Kyler is going to play. It can only make him look good. It can only make the case to keep him. It can only, signal to Monty Austinfort that he should be around. And I think that is why the Cardinals will, against all expectations, play very well. Because it seems to be the general consensus among Cardinal fans that the Cardinals are going to get their asses kicked this week. And there's plenty of reason to think that. This is not the same Rams team as the one that they faced earlier in the year. This team has got Puka Nacua. This team's got Cooper Kupp. This team's got Matthew Stafford, and he is dealing lately. But and we've seen this. We've seen the Cardinals do this. They play well against teams they have no business playing well against. And then the teams that they ought to beat, the Panthers, they just fall flat on their faces.
I will not attempt to make any kind of analytical argument, something pointing to facts or
it is not an analytical argument. I didn't even Google it. I didn't bother.
We've seen it. That's not what this is. This is kind of more just going off the eye test and going off, at least for me, just my lifetime experience of being a Cardinals fan. This game just has all the markings of a game that we have no business winning, that we will go out and win. And it makes zero sense at all. I wish I had a more concrete, reason for that argument. I don't. But at the same time, I felt the same way about the Seahawks and the Bears last night, and that one being a really close game, and that was something that turned out to be true. And I'm very confident that Arizona is going to come into SoFi Stadium. They are going to play spoiler, and it's going to make zero sense whatsoever.
I don't know what like I said, there is no data here driving this. And if you've listened to the rest of the show, we do data.
49ers fans know exactly what I'm talking about. They did experience this firsthand already this season.
Yeah, it's just for no reason the Cardinals show up in games like this, and that is why, in my opinion, I'm washing my hands of Kyler Murray. I'm done. I can't defend the guy anymore because you can't have seasons like this where you show us full and well that if the game mattered, you could have played well. When you just drop the ball in games that matter against opponents you should beat. The Cardinals are better than the Panthers. They just are. But they didn't play like it when they had to. And specifically, Kyler didn't play like it when he had to. And that is just the most annoying thing to sit down and watch on an NFL Sunday. Like, I try not to pull my hair out of my head, but it's frustrating. Absolutely frustrating. Las Toby says, Brown homecoming to the Warriors can put the Warriors to the next level. Well, that doesn't seem fair, but also it's probably true. I mean, because defensively, I think Mike Brown is like as close to defensive genius as we have in this league. He's up there with some of the great defensive minds we've ever seen. When he's on the Warriors staff, like their defensive numbers just are better.
Adding Mike Brown back to the Warriors can only do beneficial things for them. I don't see any
There's no
negative
downside at all
of bringing him over. So
yeah, and guess what? He's making so much money that you can just go ahead and let the Kings pay most of that. You don't even have to really pony up the cash for him. Pickle D says Maserati Marv will do well once he gets a QB that can actually see him. I'm of the belief that Kyler could see Marvin just fine.
Sam Darnold will be able to see him pretty well.
He just makes horrible decisions. He can see just fine. He just is bad at processing the field because the decisions he makes at this stage in his career, you can't still be making. They're mistakes. Those are mental. It's not even a height thing. And I think that that's the issue with the short jokes with me and Kyler is it's scapegoating the fact that mentally Kyler is small. Forget the height. The guy is not learning the game at the level of the other guys who are like at his level. And he's athletically one of the sharpest guys in the league. But mentally, I'm not saying he's not a smart guy. I'm saying his priorities aren't mastering the game of football. That's what I'm saying. Killer Rabbit says, listen, Big George, stick to history on the Cardinals, not the future of Marvin. I am so scared to say that to Big George. It's okay, Killer Rabbit. He's still in San Diego. He can't do anything about it. And he doesn't know what you look like. He has no clue. Big George says the Rams are not as good as everyone is making them out to be. Cardinals beat the Sheep Herders from Inglewood, California. Cardinals 37, Rams 2. Go Cardinals. So there you go. Big George giving us our dose of what Randy White usually gives us here with his epic Cardinals pick. Granted, no one's going to be able to do it like Randy, but you got the 2 right. Randy likes to give other teams 2 points and nothing else. Or his big thing lately has been half points. But either way, that's the Randy White special. What we're going to do is do the ASU special. We're going to talk ASU Texas a little bit. I'm not going to pick the game, but there are things that ASU can do to beat Texas. Texas is my team. I watch them all the time. I know the weak points. We'll talk about it. We'll also get to On This Date in Big George's sports history coming up next right here on the Daily Blender.
Wesley Financial Group is not a law firm.
Are you a victim of the timeshare trap and think there's no way out? I'm Chuck McDowell, founder of Wesley Financial Group, the original timeshare cancellation expert. And I'm here to tell you that there is a way out. All you need to do is give my office a call. I will send you a timeshare exit information kit absolutely free, explaining how the timeshare industry works and your options for cancellation.
Call Wesley now for your free info kit. Call 800-761-0000. 800-761-0000.
Paid for by Wesley Financial Group.
Cashback is not available on gas in New Jersey and Wisconsin.
Billy, your gas light's on. We need to stop and fill up.
No way, Jen. Gas around here is too expensive. We can make it a little further.
Billy, listen to your big sister. You don't need to drive all over searching for the lowest gas prices. Do what I do and use Upside.
Upside?
Do you live under a rock, Billy? Upside is the hottest cashback app out there. It's free to download and you get real cash back for every gallon of gas you buy. I use it all the time and I've already made around $200.
You can make that kind of cash back just for buying the gas you have to buy anyway.
Yes, I'm looking at the Upside app now and there's a gas station at the next exit offering 25 cents per gallon cash back.
Okay, I'm stopping to download Upside and fill up my tank. Download the free Upside app app now to earn cash back every time you buy gas. Use promo code KIND to get an extra 25 cents per gallon on your first tank. You can cash out anytime right to your bank, to PayPal, or a gift card for Amazon and other brands. Just download the free Upside app and use promo code KIND for a 25 cents per gallon bonus on your first tank. That's code KIND for a 25 cents per gallon bonus.
My pain is considerable, but that prescription is dangerous. The side effects of my medicine are worse than my condition.
I'm in recovery. I can't take those pills.
When faced with a health crisis, you shouldn't have to choose between risks.
At the Naturopathic Physicians Group in Scottsdale, our medical doctors are experts in full spectrum care using a natural approach. Patients come in for a variety of issues, including joint pain, chronic conditions, and issues specific to men's and women's health. Our naturopathic doctors can restore pain-free joint function and restore balance in immune, digestive, and hormone systems, which often improves immediate physical symptoms without having you take a bunch of pills. If traditional medicines aren't working, don't you think it's time to start feeling like yourself again? Call Naturopathic Physicians Group at 480-451-6161. That's 480-451-6161. Or go to naturopathicgroup.com. Now open in Scottsdale. It's United Forte Custom Door Showroom with 40,000 Euro doors and hundreds of state-of-the-art designs and finishes on display, plus kitchen cabinets, bathroom vanities, and more, all at wholesale prices. Builders, contractors, designers, and yes, you. Come see our showroom on Greenway Hayden Loop. That's United Forte, P-O-R-T-E. Stop by to see and feel the quality. United Forte Custom Doors. Find us at uporte.com. That's uporte.com.
The most important event in sports could happen at any time.
Like right now.
Or right now.
Or even now.
Don't miss history. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, or at 1580thefanatic.com.
It's about to be it for us. Final segment of the Daily Blender. And I don't know if Bullseye is sending this text to the right person. He's talking about Billy. And I don't know a Billy. There's no Billy that works here. And what Bullseye had to say was Billy seems to have quite a bitchy sister. He should just start driving alone. Her constant nagging would drive me crazy. I feel bad for both of you. I don't think you said that to her. You meant to send that, Bullseye. But thanks for listening to the show. Moldy Tuna Fish says, that's deep, Keon, saying that Kyler is short mentally. I actually agree with you on that one. I watch a decent amount of film, but I'm not like an expert analyst. So I don't know everything that I'm looking at. But when I listen to people who do, when I, listen to, Mina Kimes or I listen to anybody that works over at PFF and like Logan Paulson's a former tight end, NFL tight end that does a lot of really good stuff. Even John Gruden, who's got his YouTube channel where he does a lot of film breakdown stuff. Brett Coleman. So, like, there are people who know this stuff a whole lot better because that's the only sport they focus on. I like basketball too. I like some other things, so I don't get nearly as deep as even they do. That's the frustrating thing with Kyler. Like, there's just stuff he should know how to do by now. He doesn't do. There are things he should see. I watched Cam Newton call out Kyler on, he got sacked and everyone was talking about how the offensive line got Kyler sacked. And then Cam came and said, no. That guy was hot. He was coming in that way because he was allowed to. So what Kyler needed to know is when that defensive player comes, I need to throw the ball behind him, and that's where the mental aspect of this comes, where it's not about whether or not Kyler can see back there. It doesn't matter. If he had thrown an interception to the guy back there, that'd be one thing. He just got sacked by the guy directly in front of him because he didn't seem to know that on a hot read, you throw the ball hot. This is like basics of NFL quarterbacking. And like Kurt Warner's talked about it. You can find anybody that breaks down film and they talk about Kyler Murray, they go, that's a high level throw. The literal next play will be just a boneheaded decision. That's the mental side of the game that you have to master to be any good at this. And, in 6 years, he doesn't seem to be any closer to it.
So that's where I'm just out on Kyler. I'm just out. Can't really do with it. So we're going to talk a little ASU football. But before we do that, let me go ahead and do this Big Georgia sports history, because first off, I forgot to do it yesterday. Second off, we've got some good ones here today, so I'll just try and pick one of those and see where we wind up on this day in Big Georgia sports history. On this date in Big Georgia sports broadcasting history, back in the year 2001, after 21 years on WABC, the New York Yankees would broadcast its spring training regular season and postseason games on all news stations, WCBS AM, which Infinity Broadcasting, later CBS Radio, owned. The 5-year deal with the Yankees Yes Network, created earlier that year, was worth approximately a record $50 million because, of course, like that's what's happening in New York. You just have like local stations spending national money on the New York Yankees because the Yankees are everything in New York. I have never, and I've listened to sports talk radio in a lot of cities because I'm a dork and that's just what I do. I listen to sports talk radio in a lot of cities, and my grandma lives in New York, so anytime I'm around, I listen to what's there. It's the Yankees. It doesn't matter if we're in the middle of baseball season or we are in the middle of football season or we are in the middle of basketball season. They talk about the Yankees every day. And I have never lived anywhere else that does that. Here, we don't talk about the Diamondbacks every day. It doesn't feel like you can. If you don't talk the Yankees every day in New York, that is a very short radio career you're about to have. Incredibly short. So that's the reason why that one stuck out to me, because that's a unique city that way. I mean, they don't even talk about the Mets like they talk about the Yankees. And a lot of people like the Mets, too. I mean, there are parts of New York where it's like they don't even wear the pinstripes over there. You'll get into a fight with somebody. Big George says, thanks for reading on this date in Big Georgia sports history. I appreciate it. You're very welcome, Big George. Harvey Putzwadler says, wish me luck in the Blender Fantasy Football Super Bowl this weekend. Harvey, good luck. Seriously, I think I played with you in the league that I was horrific in last year. It was fun. Best of luck, man. That means I'm wishing not luck to whoever your opponent is, but they're not calling in or texting in rather to object. So you get all the good luck that the Blender has to offer, whatever that may be. So let's just talk quickly before we run out of show, a little ASU football, because I think that ASU and Texas doing battle is going to be very fun. It puts me in a very odd and awkward position because I am a big Texas fan. I also like the Sun Devils. I root for the Sun Devils basically all the time because they don't play Texas. They're not in the same conference. ASU goes to the Big 12. Texas leaves the Big 12 and goes to the SEC. There's still no conflict for me. So imagine my shock when they put out the bracket. Texas gets to play Clemson, who I'm like, all right, yeah, I think we can beat Clemson. And that means that they have to advance to play ASU. Now, if ASU pulls off the upset, they beat Texas, I will be rooting for ASU for the rest of the way, which is why I'm not talking any trash, because like I want to continue to root for the team I've been rooting for. I'm a big Kenny Dillingham fan. I'm a fan of the guy since he was an offensive coordinator. I just like everything about this program. And now I'm in a bad spot, Dylan. I'm in a very bad spot.
I don't see it that way. That sounds a lot more like a win-win to me.
Kind of a win-win, but like my childhood team versus my adopted adult team, it's just tough.
You are guaranteed, no matter what happens, you are guaranteed to be cheering someone on in the semifinal round.
That's true. That's true. It's just if Texas loses, it is going to hurt a little bit more for me, because I've been rooting for the Longhorns since I was 14 years old. So it's been 20 years of me being a fan of that program. It started with Vince Young, and I've been a fan ever since. So, yeah, I mean, yeah, I got a team to root for, but
for it to come at the expense of Texas would be unfortunate, but I think there'd be something that'd actually be a little healthy about the Big 12 just one-upping the SEC, in a way, just to, kind of draw back from this whole, kind of argument of, it's the SEC and the Big Ten against the world.
Yeah. I mean, to take them down a notch, and Texas is a huge brand. Like Texas is one of the flagship teams of the SEC, despite being new to the SEC. And they were essentially the flagship team of the Big 12. Like, you can talk about the other schools, but it was Texas and it was Oklahoma and it was kind of everybody else.
Texas had its own TV network.
Yeah, the Longhorn Network. Texas is the reason why a lot of schools left the Big 12 in the first place. They were just sucking up all of the attention, all of the money. And there was a point where they weren't even good and they were doing it. Like they were 5-7 with the Longhorn Network, making all the cash that everybody else was splitting the smaller, what was left of the pie. Like
they were eating the big pie.
Yeah. Like you said, all of this revenue comes in. Texas is taking maybe 20% off the top and everyone else has to share the other 80. Like that's crazy to me. That's insane. Like they just do that where they go because the brand is so strong. So knocking Texas off a peg, I think would gain ASU a level of respect that they could live off of for years. If they really wanted to. Recruiting would be absurd.
Well,
Absolutely crazy.
And not that I would be worried that Kenny Dillingham would leave, but oh my God, the number of schools that would be lining up trying to woo him away from Tempe. I think you would see many, many attempts at it. I don't think any of them would be remotely successful, but it does make you feel good that you've got such a hot commodity that everyone wants it.
Yeah, and like a lot of college football, when it comes to building a program, is striking while the iron is hot. And Kenny Dillingham's so smart; he understands it because you look at the ASU recruiting throughout the season. Every single win that they had, where they weren't supposed to win and they upset somebody, that recruiting went up. And it happened again and then went up. And they beat Utah, it goes up. They beat BYU, it goes up. They beat Iowa State, goes up. Like that, he just knows how to capitalize on those things. I cannot imagine what a man with his recruiting talent would do if they beat Texas. This would be the team we would see next year and the year after would be one of the craziest, most athletic teams we'd ever see in the history of ASU football. That's what you could do if you beat Texas, because that's just what that brand is. So real quickly, keys, I think, to the game right here. I'll keep it very simple because we got a minute left. Run defense. You've got to be able to stop Texas from running the football. That's how they start everything. Quinn Ewers is the kind of highlight guy. Isaiah Bond, the wide receiver. It's the run game for Texas. You got to make Quinn Ewers make mistakes. That's really the big deal there. He does make mistakes. Sark doesn't really trust him. And if you get him to make mistakes, they stop launching the football downfield. This becomes a very winnable game. And then Scadaboo and Levin. You just got to lean into what your strengths are. And Texas has a very good run defense. If you were able to break them with a lot of Cam Scadaboo, well, that'd be pretty nice. Big George says, Keon is one Sun Devil fan to a Longhorn fan. There will be no hard feelings if your Longhorns beat our Sun Devils. We are happy to be here, and sure, we want to advance, but this season was already a huge success for ASU to win the Big 12. I have a feeling that it would be a bigger disappointment for Texas to lose to ASU in the college football playoff quarterfinals. It would be, and a lot of people will probably get fired if it happens, and I don't want to see that go down. But Big George, thanks for the kind words, and we'll see you all on Monday.
Sports bettors, we've